You want me to do it? No, you.
I'm going to call the meeting, the April 24th meeting of the Long Beach Community College District to order. I'm going to ask our Superintendent President to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, if everyone would please stand.
Except there was a camp.
As we pledge allegiance to our flag, please remember the men and women who are serving our country around the world. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start our meeting tonight, there's a couple of things I want to say. First, the fire marshals have told us that it's very important if you're in this room that you have to have a seat. We can't have people standing up. Secondly, this is a very emotional and important meeting, and there's a lot of feelings that are running high right now, and we understand that and we respect that. But we will not tolerate outbursts. We will not tolerate people that don't behave responsibly. So please keep that in mind. There are important decisions to be made tonight, and give us the opportunity to do that. We will talk about the reduction in force agenda item when that comes up in terms of exactly how we're going to handle that. So without further ado, I would report that there was nothing to report out of the closed session item. And now we'd have our roll call.
President Otto.
Here.
Vice President Uronga.
Present.
Member Bowen.
Here.
Member Clark.
Here.
Member Kellogg.
Here.
Student Trustee Lyman.
Here.
Are there any introductions to be made?
We just have one, Board President Otto. Before we begin the meeting, I wanted to recognize the Long Beach City College's men's volleyball team. So I don't know if either Dean Sears is in the room and Randy.
They're both here.
Randy Tutorp, come on up. And if you could take a moment and just make sure we all know what happened last Saturday.
Well, let's just say history was made in the Hall of Champions again. First, I'd like to thank the Board of Trustees for this opportunity to address this very important event that did occur last Saturday. I'm going to let Interim Athletic Director Randy Tutorp and Assistant Interim Athletic Director Taylor Robertson to address that. I first wanted to talk about also the recent accolades that our men's volleyball team was awarded recently in San Mateo at the 3C2A convention. Long Beach City College was the only community college in the state of California to be recognized not once, not twice, but 3 times for their academic achievements. We have the Male Scholar Athlete of the Year for men's basketball in recent graduate Kyle Clark from last year's basketball team. Joining him was Sarah Ogopian from women's water polo, who was the Female Scholar Athlete of the Year for women's water polo. She is now attending Berkeley. And also recognized was our last year's men's volleyball team for being the Scholar Athlete Team of the Year, which is quite an accomplishment. Like I said, we were the only California community college to earn all 3 of those accolades, and that was history-making in itself. I'm going to let Randy tell you a little bit about the history made in the Hall of Champions last Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Very happy to be here right now and share in a very positive report. Us in athletics, we strive for athletic excellence all year long, and when the opportunity comes, it's just great to share it. This past Saturday, with a very packed Hall of Champions gymnasium, in which the men's volleyball team doesn't usually play in, so that was new for them. Although we hosted a little bit different venue for our team, was the most fan support that I've seen in my run as a coach here. Just over 1,000 people came to support, most of which were Long Beach City College fans. we were able to bring home our 4th state championship over the last 9 years and our 8th overall for the institution. The student athletes were an amazing combination of our predominantly local Moore League area. So as a coach, former coach, and 3 state championships myself, this team really represented Long Beach. This was an outstanding team, as Connie mentioned, very good student athletes. So to match the academic performance with the athletic achievement is special. Really, a pleasure to be a part of. So it was a little hard for me to be the administrator at the game while watching it, but it was also much better that I just stayed away from the coaches and let them do their job. They did a great job all season.
Thank you. Like Randy said, it was just amazing to see a lot of our student body there with support, and a lot of our administrators. Thank you so much for coming and supporting our student athletes. And that was an awesome event, and I'm pretty much the cheerleader of the crowd with the rest of the administrators, so thank you.
Thank you, guys, and please send our thanks to the coaching staff and the students. Perhaps we can have them come to the next board meeting if they're available, so we can introduce the team and the coaching staff. I think by my count, that's number 89 in terms of state championships. Yes. That's great. That's great. Thank you, Connie and Randy, and special thanks to the whole team and the coaching staff. Thanks.
It's a great continuation of the athletic tradition here at Long Beach City College, and you stand on the shoulders of a lot of very accomplished people, as we see at the Hall of Champions every year. So thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 27th.
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Ordering of the agenda, we are going to move agenda item 14.1, which is a report on the results of the comprehensive evaluation of the Long Beach City College career and technical education programs, up from the end of the agenda to right after the student trustee report, because we have some guests who need to move on. So we will do that right after the student trustee report. Are there any committee reports? Agenda item 1.1 from the trustees? I don't think so. Agenda item 1.2, this is the CCC Board of Directors election. I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the recommendations to the selection committee for the new, for those running for the CCC Board of Directors. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. And now we'll have our student trustee report. Bless you.
Thank you. The Student Senate of California Community Colleges is having their annual General Assembly in Ontario this weekend. 2 members from our cabinet will be there to represent LBCC. Students are now able to vote in the 2012-2013 ASB elections. Elections are from April 24th until 9 p.m. on Thursday, April 26th. I want to take a moment and thank Aramark, in particular Catherine Strigo, the food service director. She has worked with ASB to help with the voter turnout by running a promotion simultaneously with the elections. I wanted to also thank Camille Bolden from Human Resources, who has helped promote this event by displaying elections on the LBC's homepage. I also wanted to take a moment and point out the success of members from the School Viking and the Archaeology Club. Students from the Viking attended a conference in New Orleans that we were happy to help fund. The ASB cabinet was also able to contribute funds to the Archaeology Club that sent 20 members to a local conference. We feel that these conferences not only help our students' academic careers, but their professional careers as well. We are proud to have them representing Long Beach City College.
Great, thanks very much. Now, 14.1, Luann, are you going to make the report about Career and Technical Education Evaluation Program?
Yes, I'll go ahead and introduce it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, good evening, and thank you, President Otto, members of the board, President Oakley, and guests in the audience. Let me start by reminding us all that the board has had CTE-related items in its goals since 2005, and I think you last received a full report of our programs in 2007. Through your leadership, though, and ongoing interest in the importance of CTE to our regional economy, you've had a more recent goal to assess the college's CTE programs for viability and relevance to the regional economy. In response to that, we have been working with a consulting firm, KH Consultants, since 2000, late 2010, to work with us and help us facilitate this process here at the college. KH Consulting consists of Gaylor Hirsch Hartson and Charlotte Moore, and I just wanted to acknowledge them. Charlotte will be speaking on behalf of them tonight. We've worked collegially on an internal process that is designed to do three things: design and develop methodologies, strategies, and data elements that faculty can use for continuous improvement of their programs, beta test these methodologies on a number of our CTE programs so as to evaluate and make adjustments where needed, and to make recommendations to the college, faculty, programs, and community based on the process we are putting in place. I just want to also caution everyone by saying that this effort is not about program discontinuance. We already have a process for program discontinuance here at the college that requires a substantial analysis of any program under consideration. The goal in our effort here is to provide better support and meaningful and useful analytics for our CTE programs so that we can hopefully avoid program discontinuance. With that, I'm pleased to introduce some members of the College Leadership Steering Committee who will walk us through what we did and resulting recommendations. Greg Schultz, Dean of Industrial Tech and Career Tech Ed Programs, will outline the project and process for us. Sigrid Sexton, Chair of the Academic Senate CTE Subcommittee, will describe the leadership structure and oversight of the process. And Dr. Gaylor Krach Hartza and Charlotte Moore from KH Consulting will walk us through the project elements and subsequent recommendations. I also want to acknowledge some other members of the Leadership Steering Committee that I see in the audience tonight. One, Professor Adrian Erb, is at the back, and she also worked very diligently. We'll talk a little bit more about our structure for that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Thank you, Luann. Good evening. A little bit about the background that Luann just described. I'd like to start, can everyone hear me okay? I'd like to start by describing a little bit about the team's work related to the project methodology. As you can see the objectives shown above, I think one of the key objectives we focused on was linking the regional viability and sustainability of programs to our college's own program planning and review process. Among the study components, a key one for us was the beta test of the design. This was where we could, in effect, develop a process that we could pilot using the programs that I'll describe in a minute, and hopefully take away from this process something that we could replicate in the future, again, as part of our ongoing program planning and review. Let me talk a little bit about the group that worked very directly and actively on this process. It was our Leadership Steering Committee, and we had 4 members from our faculty and 4 members from the administrative team that were selected. They participated in all aspects of the process, beginning with discussions around the scope of work of the project, the selection of consulting team that we worked closely with, up to the point we're at today, including not only selection of the programs that were included as a part of the beta test, but also an initial analysis of the results that came about. You'll see in a packet, in addition to the PowerPoint presentation, some key information which includes the beta test criteria that were applied, as well as a detailed listing of the departments and programs that were a part of the beta test process we worked on. A little bit about the programs that were selected. Working closely with the Leadership Steering Committee in consultation with our CT committee and the deans, we identified 11 departments, and ultimately 41 separate programs. And to give you an example, one of the programs that I work most directly with is the automotive department. And as a part of the automotive department, that includes 4 programs. It includes the automotive technology department, the auto body collision and repair program, the diesel technology program, and the advanced transportation program. What I want to say about the beta test is that from the beginning, when the leadership steering committee developed, kind of came to consensus around the indicators, we started looking at up to 90 different data indicators and really came to agree and focus on 13 key data indicators. And then as we begin with focus groups and then begin to work directly with program faculty, the department heads and the 11 departments I mentioned worked very directly and actively with the consulting team and our steering committee from the beginning to the end of the process. At this time, I'd like to introduce Sigrid Sexton, who, of course, chairs our CTE committee and is also a member of the leadership steering committee.
So this process was very collaborative. We, first of all, the Leadership Steering Committee started early on and took part in the interviews of the consultant groups. And in those interviews, there was a great care taken to make sure to make clear that we didn't want an external process coming in and assessing us. We wanted it to be very internally driven, very from the faculty's voice, giving voice to the faculty, and that was honored throughout this process. We, in addition to the Leadership Steering Committee, of course, the CTE Committee agendized this at each of their monthly meetings, and by doing this, we were able to field concerns which were coming up as the process moved along, and those concerns were brought back to the Leadership Steering Committee. KH consultants came to our CTE committee twice during this process, and then once at the end of it to share the results in a less formal version of these results. And of course, that there were the beta test participants. From every report I've gotten, the department heads experienced very good collaboration, and they were really a part of this process as far as developing the plan and moving the plan forward. So, why isn't it? Okay, so the beta test participants, they took part by first helping to develop the indicators and to give input into those points. They defined their cohort groups, and this might seem like a simple process, but defining a cohort of students in CTE programs can be quite challenging. In some cases, students take only one course in a series, so that process of defining the cohort group was very important. And then they took great care in looking at the survey questions, and specific groups of survey questions were developed for each program. And then at the end of all of this, the department heads were met with one-on-one with the consultants and were able to review those findings. So in the end, we have a process that I feel was very supportive of the faculty, really is the voice of the faculty. And I think that it has very good transparency, very good collaboration, and you can see it in these recommendations. These recommendations were brought to CTE subcommittee last week, and there was a good feeling that this is a very nice reflection of our needs, and we really hope that it helps our programs move forward to have better health. And so now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Charlotte Moore of KH Consulting.
Thank you. And I'd like to start by saying it has been an honor to work with Long Beach City College and the faculty and administration on this project. Largely because the team pulled together so strongly about what are we really trying to do. And it became obvious from the very beginning you can't answer that question from just one perspective. You can't say, oh, well, business likes us or doesn't, or students like us or does or don't. Those individual perspectives aren't sufficient. So we started with what do we really want to know about? We want to know about the students. Are they successful? Are they participating? Are they graduating? Are they getting jobs? Are they getting jobs that are paying well? is the employer community satisfied with us? Are we actually working with our educational community, both in downward in the sense of the high schools, and also Long Beach State, the UCLAs of our area? Do they recognize the work that we're doing? We need to think about the programs specifically themselves. Are they something that's really important to this specific campus? Are there delivery options responsive to what the students need? And also the faculty had a perspective that needed to be considered. Are they trained? Do they have connections with the business community? All of those perspectives were things that we were trying to resolve and trying to get answers to. And when Greg was talking about the 90 different data points, we were thinking, well, what data points will give us the best answers to some of those questions? The next slide shows that the data points are really trying to answer multiple questions at the same time. So you might look at SLOs, that stands for Student Learning Objectives. One of the questions you have, are the students actually learning what we're intending them to learn? That's what student learning objectives are really looking at. And you can say that will actually help answer questions about are they successful, are they participating? But the business community is also interested in SLOs in the sense of are we training the students to learn what the businesses want them to learn? So each of the individual indicators is seeking to answer multiple questions from different perspectives. Rather than go through all of the indicators, I'd just like to say a couple of words about them. There were 13 of them, and they ranged from very highly data-driven kinds of analysis, a lot of which was done through institutional effectiveness, a lot of work thinking it through cohorts and what are success rates and what are graduation rates, what are completion rates, what are other community colleges doing. All of that work was done through institutional effectiveness. And in addition, some of it was talking through the faculty. How are you doing with your advisory committees? What's happening? How much interdisciplinary work is required? So it was a balance of things that were highly number crunching kinds of questions, and also some subjective questions discussing what was going on in the Long Beach City College program. Each of the, as has been said a couple of times, each of the departments got a stack of data, and we met with each of them saying, okay, this is what we learned about your program. We specifically did a student survey and a separate business survey. The business survey was sent to the entire business community. There was a disappointing response to the business survey. We only got 51 businesses respond. So we don't have sufficient data really to make any judgments that we can put a lot of faith in about what the business community thinks. And you'll see from the recommendations that we're looking to really expand the strong relationship between the programs and the faculty and the business community. But there was a lot of work done in thinking through what do we really need to know from our students and our business community, and that will lay the path for future discussions and surveys. If we move on to the recommendations, we can discuss each one of them separately. What I would suggest, though, is that if you look at them as a whole, there's a couple of messages that the recommendations are trying to get across. One is the students and the businesses actually think of this college as a whole. So it's not just I like my program or I don't like my program. I like my teacher or I don't like my teacher. It's a lot about how's counseling, how's financial aid, how's registration, am I getting an educational plan? They think about the college as a whole, and all of that needs to be attended to as we move through these recommendations, and as you continue to do the assessment year after year and see are we improving in these areas. Research has shown generally a very high correlation between the number of educational plans and student success and completion quickly. So, focusing on something like increasing the use of educational plans has become sort of a theme that we've heard a lot. We ask questions about the educational plans in the student survey. You want to be providing, the faculty are very interested in taking the data that we gathered from this and actually applying it to improve their programs. There's a lot of issues that can be addressed thinking through scheduling or pedagogical approaches or a lot of different things that can be used through that they can use from the data. And they're saying, support us in dealing with some of the operational challenges that we have that interfere with the time that we can spend to do this. So it was one of the strong recommendations from the faculty that a look not only at student services, but also at the administrative support faculty would be an important piece. I think that's pretty much the sort of the theme. We also had a few recommendations associated with how to improve the beta test, including having program-specific surveys, including working very strongly on that cohort definition issue that Sigrid spoke of, And also to think about working through ways that the faculty can discuss the findings amongst themselves and come up with improvement plans so that it's not just, well, here's your data, go play with it, but let's talk about how we can make improvement. So those were the 3 overall beta test recommendations that came up. With that, I'd like to ask if there are any questions, and I and my team will be fielding them if you have any.
Yeah, can I just say one thing, because this is a high-level presentation of the process that we put in place. What you're not seeing is the tremendous amount of information and data that was given to each one of the departments to be able to take a look at. It's rich with information to glean and to look at gaps, look at what's working, look at what's not working. The reference to working with us as a community to understand and analyze that data is really important, because that's where the questions are sitting and that's where the answers are also sitting, to be able to understand that data. But there's probably a packet like this that's probably given to each program. The purpose in the future will be to take the programs that have not been assessed. We will roll this process into their program planning and review process that they will be going through, and it'll become a part of the fabric of the program planning and review that happens in the CTE programs.
Another thing that hasn't been said is that career technical education is one of the very few programs that the Chancellor's Office for the state of California has announced are among its priorities in these lean economic times. And so Long Beach has always had strong career technical education, and our ability to move students to success, which is our priority goal, is consonant with what they're requiring us to do at the state level.
Yeah, we have about 48 career technical programs here at Long Beach, and like industry in general, skill sets and the trends in industry, the infusion of technology is rapidly changing in those programs. So putting methodologies in place that help us assess our career technical programs to be able to keep up with that is really critically important for us, and that will eventually get us to the point where we do have viability and relevance on an ongoing basis just in time, and that's also the point of this, is to be able to do this at a quicker pace for our programs.
Great. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Board? Okay, well, thank you very much.
If you don't mind, I'd also just like to thank real quickly the leadership steering team, the other faculty members, Adrian Erb, Kevin Ryan, John Huguenin, April Juarez, and I don't think I missed Sigrid, of course, and then Eva Begg and Maria Narvez and the Institutional Effectiveness Office were incredible at helping us gather this data and pull it together. And I don't want to miss Cage Consulting. They've been wonderful in working with us. They've worked with about 25% of the community colleges in California. They're an international firm. Their expertise is in assessment and higher education. So I want to thank them publicly as well.
Great. Roberto, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, at the end, I can't see the slides number, but it's near the end, the recommendations. Do you have bullets there for the recommendations? You're talking about strengthening relationships between the business community and LBCC departments, strengthening relationships with graduates, so on and so forth. How are you looking at implementing some of these recommendations, or do you have an idea as far as being able to put committees together, or especially when you're looking at some of our stakeholders outside, look at a business community? Do you already have something in mind, or do you have something in place already that you are just basically going to refocus them to address this document here?
Yes, sir. I could speak to that a little bit. To give you a quick example, one of the 11 departments that participated as part of the beta test was the automotive department. And one of the things that Department Head Don Sullivan and I have looked at with the department faculty is we've actually, on May 10th, we're going to have an advisory committee. In the past, we've had advisory committees, but they've been more specific to diesel or automotive tech or auto body. What we're doing is having a department-wide advisory committee and really going to be engaging a variety of industry partners from the whole automotive area around some of the things we learned based on the folks that did respond as part of the beta test. But we've talked a lot about using some of the information we learn together as part of the beta test. And, beginning with an advisory committee, having conversations around our program, what our needs are, but also how we can continue to meet or even better meet the needs that employers have, the industry has as the industry changes with technology and what they need from the workers of today. That's maybe one example.
Would these advisory committees be, just for lack of a better term, permanent in regards to providing you with advice and direction as far as where you want to see these programs to go?
Yes, we ought to be having advisory committees on an annual basis. Maybe what's a little bit unique about this idea is kind of bringing multiple departments together in a related industry cluster. But certainly the intent and desire is to have regular advisory committees, each of the CTE program areas, and many do right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much for an excellent presentation on a very, very important subject, and I'm glad that we've made this progress, and we're ready to go to the next phase for this, for the other programs. Great, thank you. Agenda item number 3, public comments on agenda items. This is the opportunity for members of the public, including the students here and faculty, staff, classified employees here to comment on items listed on the agenda at the time the item is discussed and prior to the board action on those items. We have 24 people that have signed up to speak on agenda items, all on the subject of reduction in force and budget deficit. I'm going to limit the discussion to 45 minutes. I'm not going to individually limit what people say, but if people start to be repetitive, then what I'm going to do is explain to you that you are being repetitive, and what you're really doing is taking somebody else's time who may want to say something that will be influential. My goal is to make this process fair, effective, meaning that we get information so we can make our decisions on this subject, and efficient as well. There's a lot to be covered in a short period of time. We need your cooperation. I have been working with your leaders out there to discuss this process, and I think there's been some concurrence that we want this to go smoothly. We want everybody to have an opportunity to speak, but if if one of your group or somebody out there is trying to take much more time than is his or her fair share, then that may not work. There are others that are watching this in the room across the way, the multi-purpose room across the way. Some of those may be people who want to speak, and so what I'm going to do is call up the speakers 5 at a time, so you're all queued up. When the 5th speaker starts to talk, I will call another group of 5 so we can roll through this without too much waste of time, and also make sure that anybody that's not here but is outside has an opportunity and doesn't miss their chance to speak. So with those as sort of the ground rules, I'm going to call up our first 5 speakers. They are Alta Costa, Eleanor Sanadu, I should say, Vic Merrill, Dr. Lynn Shaw, and Ann Engel. These were in the order that they were given to me. So, Alta Costa first. And Alta, thank you for your help in organizing this. And so you may begin.
My name is Alta Costa, and I'm the president of AFT number 6108. I just want to say these layoffs weren't well thought out. You forgot to consider the students. You really need to rethink that.
Eleanor Sonado, welcome.
Hi. The honorable members of the board, distinguished superintendent, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eleanor Sonido. I work in the library as an adjunct certificated faculty, teaching students how to acquire skills to survive in our information era. I'm one of the lucky ones who did not get a layoff notice. I was very happy to keep a job, but one day last week I realized what it meant to keep a job in Long Beach City College. You see, the library will lose 6 library assistants and technicians. I was at the library reference desk with 4 students lined up in front of me. They were waiting for me to assist them. I had 2 students waiting in the chat room. We have chats in our reference desk. I had an email reference question. You could ask questions through your email. And the phone was ringing. There was not help around. I was alone. The work of the library assistant, the library technician, and my own job will be all on my shoulders come next semester because they were losing 6 of our staff. If I want, or if we want the library to keep in operation, I should know all the jobs of a library technician and library assistant on top of my already burdened job. I'm sure the various departments on campus would be in the same predicament come next semester. I'm not complaining. I simply like to ask whether the honorable members of the board and the president have planned the retraining, relearning, and readjustment of the various departments who will lose vital people in their ranks. Now, we face the reality that the ones who will be left on campus will have to be burdened by jobs beyond their contracts. How shall we carry on the extra load? I trust that you have planned well when you made the cuts. If you did, please tell us because we would like to be on the same page with you. I am 65 today. Yes, it's my birthday. All these years, I have learned that if you want a tree to thrive and bear great fruits, you need to prune it. But pruning is done on top, not at the bottom. I'm sure you know what happens when you disturb the roots. The Long Beach City College tree has its roots cut. May God bless us all.
Vic Merrill.
Hi. I'm the facilities plumber, and I know you've all heard the saying about something hitting the fan. Well, around here, it hits pretty hard and it hits fast. You start heading to one, and you get called to something that's bigger. It just snowballs all day long. There's a lot to do all the time. I love it here at Long Beach City College. I'm not going to lie to you. I've tried to be a good worker and not be a problem. I've always thought I've been part of the solution. Sometimes it's nonstop, hectic. Sizing down is going to put me out. I've strived to get my job done, stay under the radar, make a better campus. The budgeting around here has out of money very early in the year. Norm, the other plumber, and I do great work with tongue depressors and duct tape. And yes, a repair of tongue depressor and duct tape lasts 2 years. I believe there are areas that do have overstaffing, but the plumbing department is not. Problems on campus with plumbing, it's some of the fixtures here are from 1927. I've just had the unfortunate circumstances of not living around the corner from the facilities director or down the street, or having my aunt be a vice president, or starting out on step 5 of the salary schedule. It's really gonna hurt me to not have insurance. I mean, look at me. I just don't fall into the cronyism or nepotism that's involved in the selection process here at the college. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Lynn Shaw.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lynn Shaw, and I'm the Community College Association president for the full-time faculty, and many of the members are here tonight. Yay. When the college said they needed to cut, our union went to work, and our membership came up with lots of ideas, not only cutting ideas, but income-generating ideas. And there were hundreds of them. And we consolidated these ideas, and we went to our representative council to rank them. And I've met with most of the board of trustees, and so you've talked to me about this, but I'm going to review a few of them tonight. So our first idea, and I really think it's a good idea, is the golden handshake. And if the college can't afford a golden handshake, maybe some small retirement incentive would help the college as we struggle through these budgetary times. We estimate about 27 faculty would be interested in this, and it would reduce college costs by having the faculty at the top of the pay scale retire. The second idea that was ranked number 2 by the representative council was freeze our president's superintendent's salary. We estimate that if he gave up his 4% raise, this would fund 3 additional English classes. Or maybe I should say 3 additional ESL classes. Our third idea has been around a very long time, and it's reduced the number of vice presidents and associate vice presidents. Compared to other colleges of our size, we have 9, and for example, Cerritos has 5. So we believe that reducing at the top, as one of our previous speakers talked about, would really help with the costs and make us a more efficient college. And although we've been saying this for a very long time, we really feel like we're not being heard on this one at all. So we came up with an alternative idea, which is, since the summer is so small, we suggested the administrators be reduced to part-time during the summer. Some of our other ideas include selling the Los Coyotes building, use the reserve, do not offer summer or winter session, and we have many more creative cost-saving ideas that can protect our students and save our programs. We believe all of these options are better than laying off our valuable classified employees. Thank you.
Ms. Engel, before you start, I'm going to call up the 6 more who will be our next speakers. Janet Castanola, Dr. Ron Reel, Thomas Hamilton, Leslie Heber, and Teresa Wheeler. Did I?
Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
My name is Ann Engel, and I'm the Communications Officer for the Classified Union, and I'm one of the fortunate people from IITS that gets to keep a 100% position. It's with a heavy heart that I speak out tonight. But it's because what is confronting all of us, staff, faculty, and the students, that I feel it's important to speak out. The classified make it possible for the students, the faculty, and the administration to do their jobs. And our pain affects the entire campus. But I cannot just sit back and watch some of the egregious treatment that I see happening to my coworkers that have dedicated years and decades to this college, many of which weren't able to make it into this boardroom and who have now filled the spillover room across the way. We did a survey of 12 community college districts and received responses from 9. The results were eye-opening, aggravating, and confirmed what some of us have been feeling. Our union has been taken advantage of over the years, and to quote one union president that I spoke with, "It sounds like you are being treated like third-class citizens." We asked the other colleges what was done to mitigate the loss of revenue from the budget deficits previous to this year. Several said that up to now, the main impact has been to categorical funded programs, sections being cut, summer programs reduced, and some had a hiring freeze. One said their staff saw a huge reduction in numbers because of 2 rounds of golden handshakes. None have been subjected to the furlough days or layoffs that we've had up to date. 2 years ago, our LBCC staff endured 15 furlough days and a salary step freeze. Last year, 15 classified staff were laid off, and we had permanent benefit modifications and increased employee contributions. When asked what was the coming strategy for the 2012-13 year, we found only one other school, Riverside, that was facing layoffs at this time. Most of the schools said they were waiting to see what happens after the election in November. Some are talking about the possibility of furloughs in the future. Some are now being asked at thinking about paying into their health benefits, and some mentioned freezing the steps. Also of note is that previous to 2008, most of them always received their COLA increases, which have been non-existent here for a decade, minus a 1% bump around 2005 for classified. So we found out that none of the other colleges have been asked to save money by furloughs. None of them have been asked to save money by paying into their health benefits for several years like us. And none of them are facing layoffs that affect 38% of their bargaining unit. So we ask, where has this effort at our campus and cost savings gone? What is going on here at Long Beach City College? We want answers, and we won't stop until we find them. I want to say to the students here, the Long Beach City College students, I was fortunate enough to attend higher education in the 1980s when we still believed in equal opportunity and understood the value of shared sacrifice for the betterment of all demographics in our state. Many of the people that were able to take advantage of these golden opportunities, like affordable education, are now the ones that don't want to have to pay more taxes. They want to continue to receive obscene salaries. and hang on to all their perks and benefits. If you students can't convince people that we all need to compromise to keep this state golden, you will have a very rough road ahead. I am sorry.
Ron Reel, and just so everybody knows that's talking, if you talk as long as the last speaker, only 9 people will be allowed to speak instead of the 24 that we have in line. So please go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, almost evening. My name is Dr. Ron Norton Reel, and I'm the president of the Statewide Community College Association. I was very honored this evening that we started with the Pledge of Allegiance, which ends justice for all. But I am saddened by the fact that we must ask the question, justice for whom? It's certainly not justice for our students, because our students are the ones that are not going to benefit from what is taking place today and the reactions up and down the state. I too believe that we should wait until November's election, because I believe that the governor's initiative and that initiative is going to get through that will help us immensely. But I believe that we're overreacting. And I want to say that I think what the new mantra is that the state governments up and down California, the rest of the states, have been cutting their higher education budgets. And at the local level, we cut faculty and we cut classified. We cut faculty and we cut classified. We know that in the last 3 years, we've lost more than 4,000 part-time faculty members up and down the state. And each one of them was teaching classes for our students. So when we cut those sections and we cut the faculty, we are harming our students because there are not as many classes that they can take and then get out of the system. At the same time, when we are cutting classes, we also are confronted with the fact that the reserves in our 72 districts continue to grow. That's the unrestricted reserves, $1.6 billion this year. What do we say to our students when we have those reserves and we're cutting the classes that they need to take? At this college, 4 of your vice presidents got a 1% raise in the fall of 2011. What about our students? Where are they in our priority? I think that you as a board need to decide who we are going to represent. There is no reason for us to exist if it is not for our students. There's no reason to have a board of trustees. There's no reason to have administrators. There's no reason for faculty members. We must work together to preserve what our students need, and that is an education. Please don't forget them, because they are our commodity.
Thank you. Would you state your name, please?
Leslie Heber. Actually, I was going to say good evening. My name is Leslie Heber. I am an educational technologist too. I have worked as an educational technologist for 27 years. Of those 27 years, I've been at LBCC 12 years. My job is being terminated. But this is not about me today. I am here to talk about positions that are vital to the success of our students. The positions I am talking about are the instructional support staff. These people support students every day that the school is open for learning. There are a number of positions with the word instructional in their title on both campuses. This position runs the departmental computer labs, and 2 computer labs are for all student use. My experience has been with the Academic Computing Center and the LAC Learning Resource Center. I know firsthand how these staff members impact students, because I was an adjunct Learn 617 instructor for several years. I worked with the staff very closely. These staff members help students in several ways: formatting their research paper, accessing online classes, showing them how to navigate their online classes, online registration, helping with online registration, helping with printing issues, helping with creating email accounts for the students. Lastly, provide a virtual classroom that virtually has all software from all the other computer labs in this lab, so that when the other labs are closed, they can still do their work. This lab has 3 separate times during the semester that they are overwhelmingly busy. First is the beginning of the semester, when students are adding their class, when they're figuring out their schedule, when they're trying to get a hold of their whole idea of what's going on in school. The second is midterm. They're overwhelmed. And third and lastly is the final exams time, when they're finishing up the reports, they're finishing up projects, group projects. This lab sees over 200 to 300 students a day. Right now, they've seen up to 3,000 students by themselves, sometimes only by themselves, without any support staff. Finally, one of the things this support staff does is security. They make sure that the lab upstairs is secure from all kinds of issues, using computers wrongly, and there's been plenty of that. Did I also mention that these instructional staff also helps instructors, sometimes staff? This is a very important job. I invite you to come and observe how busy these labs are, not on a Friday at 3 p.m., but during the week, Monday through Thursday, from about 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and from 4 p.m. to 6:50, because they need at least 10 minutes to get back to school after they printed their report just before they have school. And especially watch what happens in these labs, how important it is to have somebody there who is actually a permanent employee here at LBCC. Thank you.
Could you state your name, please?
Yes, my name is Janet Castagnola, and I've been bumped from my 45% position, and I will be laid off in June. But tonight I'm speaking for Barbara Limley, who has worked with the Upward Bound program at PCC for the past 14 years. In that time, she has assisted literally hundreds of high school students as they graduated and moved on to Long Beach City College, other colleges, and the promise of a better life. She thought she had a home here at Long Beach City College. As a former student and current employee, she felt that Long Beach City College had fulfilled its promise of a better life for herself and her son. And until recently, that was true. In July, because of the massive cuts and reductions at Long Beach City College, she will be bumped into another position. She will move from 100% employment to 47.5% employment for 10 months of the year. And she will be making less than 40% of her current salary, and she will be without health benefits. In March 2012, the President's agenda, he stated a goal of working with all employee groups to build a spirit of collegiality and respect throughout the college. And what happened to that promise? How respectful is it to implement policies that place your employees in a position that threatens their very existence? Just yesterday, President Oakley sent a memo to all colleagues regarding a report from the American Association of Community Colleges called Reclaiming the American Dream. He was a member of the commission saying LBCC is a leader in this effort, which was a call to action for community colleges throughout the nation to transform our institutions to better serve the needs of our students and the nation's workforce. How can LBCC and President Oakley be considered a leader in this call to action while instituting policies within his own organization that undermines student needs and his own workforce. President Oakley's mission statement on the Long Beach City College website speaks of the values that guide Long Beach City College and mark his leadership, integrity, the encouragement of an ethical campus environment, and valuing the perspectives of all individuals. Responsibility, the promotion of social responsibility throughout our campus community. Equity and diversity, cultivating equity and diversity by embracing all perspectives and by striving for equitable opportunities and outcomes for all. Yet there appears to be very little integrity and responsibility in the very calculated and deliberate move to reduce a position, which is currently 40 hours a week, to 19 hours a week, just 1 hour less than necessary to get health benefits. There is very little equity in the massive cuts that classified staff, while other sectors remain relatively untouched. Another promise broken. Barbara is now being placed in a position to break her own promise to her son, the promise that he would be able to pursue an education first while working part-time. Working less than 40% of her current salary, her household cannot be maintained and severe cuts have to be made. Her son's education will now move down the line, and that hurts most of all. The promise word is being used a lot around Long Beach City College these days. It is seen in the media and in literature across the campus. Sadly, many classified staff members have now learned from personal experience that a promise without intent and action is simply an empty promise.
Give me your name, please.
Thomas Hamilton. Good evening, Board of Trustees.
Mr. Hamilton, before you start, I want to ask you people to think as you talk. You're averaging about 4 minutes a talk, and that means that we're 27, 28 minutes into a 45-minute period. So please, if you know you've got something that's going to take 5 minutes, cut it down, and we want to give as many people an opportunity to speak as we can. So please go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, students, faculty, and most of all, classified employees, and Dr. Clark, welcome back. In the building outside, it says Long Beach City College, but the people on the inside represent the community on the inside. Just like the board represents different sections of the city in which our college stands, the employees are dedicated and bonded like family. We all support one another at times, good and bad. We have grown throughout the years and share lots of things and each other. Like they say, you spend more time with your fellow co-workers than you do with your real family. And that's because that's what we are, family. We have witnessed a lot of changes throughout the years, like watching our kids grow up and attend the same campuses as we did. Just leaving the shop today at PCC, I remember my mother did an upholstery class like 30 years ago in the same building that we now build houses in. I love watching sports, especially basketball in the March. When the college transition goes, they call it the March Madness. Well, last month on March 23rd, 2012 at 1300 hours, March Madness came to Long Beach City College. Human Resources held a meeting across the quad, just north of here, with the classified employees. They said, we have $5.1 million shortfall, and they have figured out a way to fix it. So on that day, I call it Black Eye Friday, because that's the day the district gave this college a black eye. The district went shopping for funds, and they decided that we, the classified employees, should pay. In this meeting, there were 176 classified employees, or 40% of the force, almost half of the classified staff. The madness goes on. During this meeting, we told that you were because one of two things, either lack of work or lack of funds, and you came under 3 categories: layoff, reductions of hours, job entitlement, or bumping. The first one, layoff, it's kind of easy to explain. It means after July 1, 2012, you will no longer be employed with Long Beach City College. So you're not fired, you're not terminated, you just don't have a job. Second, reduction of hours. I like the way that sounds, reduction. It doesn't say lost wages, reduction in pay, or smaller paycheck, but that's exactly what it means. Some will go from 12 months to 10 months, from 12 months to 9 months, and some down to 8 months. Now, going from 12 months to 10 months makes you take a cut of 18%. That's an average of between $6,000 to $8,000 a year. Now, in this workforce or whatever, will you recuperate that 18%? Absolutely not. Now, seeing that we've had no raises over the last 7 years, cost of living is just something we talk about. And cola is something that we drink because we don't see it on a paycheck. And while we are working these reduced hours, we will be off on July 2012 and January 2013. So will we get unemployment for those months? That answer is not clear at this time. And while you go on a job and find out how you're going to get a job when you're only going to be working for 1 month, you tell me. And there's another reduction. You reduce from 100% to below 50%, and now you make half of what you were getting. And now you're stressed out and worried because you can't pay your bills and you want to go to the doctor. But then you remember you lost your benefits, and now you can't go to the doctor. Now everybody can get sick. The madness continues. Third case. In this case, your job depends on your seniority date. And just what is this? The district explained it this way. It's the first day you worked and get paid on a full-time status. In most business and organizations, your start date is your seniority date. It does not change with promotion, job change, title change, classification change. They use a clock to measure your time of service, but at Long Beach City College, they use a stopwatch. Because you can have several dates depending on when you work, the districts had a reclass study done about 6 or 7 years ago. And a lot of those changes were implemented. Titles were eliminated, new ones were created. Old jobs had new titles for the same job. And here's the problem. The district cannot define the dates for all employees who will be bumping who.
Mr. Hamilton, you're at 5 minutes. Can you wrap up?
Yes.
Thank you.
And what dates will be used? The district and the union has been working on this for months, and I stand here, the problem still exists. So what do we want? One, have the district put a freeze on hiring, eliminating all bonuses, stipends, and raises, because if you can't afford your current employees, how can you afford to hire new ones? Two, tell the district to pump the brakes a little bit and ask him to look at it again and then see, why does the classified have to carry the entire financial burden? Why is it the ones that have the less to say pay the most? And finally, put the community back in Long Beach City College.
Thank you. Give us your name.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Therese Wheeler.
Therese, I'm going to now call up the Oscar San Toscoy, Lark Zunick, Travis Cleveringa, and Gloria Williams.
Other colleges are being offered incentives for early retirement, and I wonder why we aren't. We've been informed that if the new taxes don't get passed in November, there will be more permanent cuts to classified staff. After all of these cuts, the administration still doesn't seem to be any closer to having a realistic handle on the budget. In fact, it appears to continue to fix the problem the same way it has in the past by cutting more classified positions, even though these methods have already had a negative impact on the daily functioning of the college. Every time a classified position is cut, it leaves an unfilled hole, resulting in more stress to perform vital functions at the college and hampering the ability of classified staff to properly support our students. Administration is saying that is going to be a long-term fix. So are we talking about cutting jobs across the board to commiserate with a smaller student enrollment and which will leave this college a shell of its former self? I wonder, has the administration rigorously and honestly looked everywhere for innovative and creative ways to bring our budget into balance? If the answer is yes, then how is it that other colleges we surveyed are not taking these drastic measures? In good conscience, is cutting 38% of the classified staff the only and the best answer? Do we really believe this won't have a long-term negative effect on the morale and the reputation of this college? It seems it's time for leadership to take a path less traveled, rather than continuing to make decisions that have led us to where we are today. Identify where the fat is, take innovative measures which will ultimately result in a new and harmonious culture at LBCC. And who knows, perhaps your innovative methods will be emulated at other institutions.
Thank you very much. Are you Travis? Oh, say, State your name for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Askor Santskoy.
Welcome.
I have been working for Long Beach City College for 11 years. I was looking for some numbers or data to make an effective speech. Then I realized the obvious doesn't need data. We all know the sky is blue. We all know California is in trouble, in crisis. We all know that the budget cuts are real. We all know that we need jobs to improve our economy. Economy needs people spending money to be a growing economy. And again, we all know that people with no jobs cannot spend money. People with no jobs lose their homes. And people with no jobs doesn't help the economy. Layoffs are not a solution for the economy. Laying off equal to open a hole to cover another one. Laying off people here at the Long Beach City College equal to cover a hole made up by the budget cuts. However, it opens a bigger hole in our community. And I think we are a community college. We went through furlough days before. Let's do it again. Let's see what Santa Monica College is doing. Laying off 55 employees and slash the hours of 96 others, plus how many layoffs in the past? How do we expect to keep our excellent academic level to our students when almost the 100% that come to my computer lab, they have problems finding their classes? All the classes are full or they are no longer exist. Please, member of the board, let's exhaust all options. Let's make the layoff and big budget cuts, and big restrictions and reductions the very, very last option. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Travis Cleveringa. Good evening. Trustee Bowen.
Name, please.
I'm sorry?
Name, please.
Travis Cleveringa. Trustee Bowen, last summer you stated that if there ever was a time to use the rainy day reserve fund, this year would be that time. Can we now use that fund? It's pouring rain and you're leaving us all to drown, so maybe you can address that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lark Zunich.
Could you stop for just a second, please? I'm going to call Jason Troya, Andrea Donato, Alexa Castanoa, Mercedes Salinas, and Nguyen Natalie Lee. Please, please.
My name is Lark Zunich. I'm an associate professor in the reading department, and I'm here to advocate that the position of Educational Technologist 2 be removed from the layoff list. This position is directly responsible for increasing student success of distance learning classes and instructional web pages for face-to-face classes. Students are able to call in and get personalized one-on-one assistance for their technology concerns. As a professor with a web-enhanced class, I'm unable to answer my students' questions about particular browsers, password problems, or technology glitches. Those folks in the ITDC lost one of these positions in the layoffs last year. This means that the current staff is now stretched thin as they work to adequately meet the needs of 2 centers serving both campuses. While I appreciate the willingness of the student helpers, I find they're unable to adequately answer most of my questions and must seek the assistance of the educational technologists. This is especially true if one has questions about Mac computers and technologies. But helping students to bridge the technological divide is only part of the need. The educational technologists are instrumental in assisting faculty, both full and part-time, in all their technological needs. Through workshops and one-on-one training, I've been able to create 3 websites for my courses, learn how to add film clips and animation to my PowerPoint presentations, and been introduced to databases filled with appropriate classroom instruction material from YouTube and film archives. All these advances allow me to devote my class time to interactive, collaborative work. My students can find their class announcements, their assignments, background information, and a grade report 24 hours, 7 days a week at their website. The website format, the new e-learning environment, is all new this year and a great improvement over the program we've used in the past. But to learn how to do all of these things, I needed to participate in the appropriate workshops. and because of who I am, I needed to participate twice. Beyond attending workshops, I needed to spend many hours at home and in the ITDC. I could not have done this without personal assistance from the educational technologists. They were willing to teach me without overwhelming me by technospeak. They guided me through all the things I needed, either on the phone, through email, or in person. They helped me understand the online training, which I found very confusing. And they do services such as scanning and formatting disks or making the online materials meet the lawful accommodations for disabled students. As a department, we've utilized their help to help us make spreadsheets as we collected our student learning outcomes data and how to report it and also how to interpret it. This position helps all of those old dogs around our campus learn all the modern new tricks, such as the best way to incorporate tablets and smartphones into our classroom environment. Remember, even a youthful department such as mine, none of our full-time professors is under 35. It's easy for us to get behind when technology is moving so fast. So whatever's happening abreast in the cloud, that's what the ITDC staff does. They teach us how to use our iPhones or iPads or whatever iNext is coming, and to stay connected to our students. To lose another one of these positions will deteriorate our ability to keep up with and engage our students, most of whom are digital natives and far ahead of us.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hi, my name is Gloria Williams. I don't think I need to tell anybody at this point what I do for the college. And I'm not really here to address the layoff issue in my terms. I'm grateful that the reduction, my position has been minimal, although it does exist. But as part of my position, I do educate and I do advocate, and I'm very concerned that the district may be in a position that the impact of this reduction specifically, sadly it's the only one I'm knowledgeable about, is going to have a negative economic impact on the district. I am the only permanent staff member on either campus who's qualified to provide communication access, and as I think we've seen, it's an all-day, everyday endeavor. This access is for current students, for incoming, for prospective students, for their families, for all of your departments. It's for faculty, it's for financial aid, cashiering, admissions and records, and so on. And I'm concerned with the lack of access that may occur during the month or more when I'm gone. As I'm sure you're aware, that access for disabled students is a district-wide responsibility, and when it's gone, it's a district-wide liability, if you will. Suspension of legally mandated services or delay of those services, or attempts to provide it via an outside source, I feel, could easily far outweigh any benefit in savings that might come from the reduction to my salary. Additionally, I think there's reasonable expectation that the denial of such access during regular business hours during which we operate could result in formal complaints in litigation, because we're talking about a population of consumers that's protected by state and federal law. Just as physical access must be provided, wheelchair users would use a ramp, for example, as physical access, clear and accurate communication access is mandated as well. To suspend that for any length of time could cost the student their enrollment opportunity, timely application for, receipt of financial aid, Department of Rehab support, and ultimately cause them to be unable to benefit from the myriad of services and programs that are available on campus, which are, of course, all available to the hearing public. I think such delay or denial could quite reasonably result in an OCR complaint, the cost of which to our district would clearly exceed whatever measure of savings is anticipated in the reduction of this position. I fully and sincerely appreciate that this is a very difficult process, and I believe that no one is taking it lightly. I know there's many other people in this room who are impacted to a much greater degree than I am, and that it's disastrous for some. I can't speak to that, but I am certain that the upcoming cuts to this position will put us at risk. Should we fail to provide the deaf community with the access that they deserve and to which they're legally entitled, I think we can reasonably anticipate some of these outcomes. At the risk of
sounding sharp and with absolutely no disrespect intended. I think this is a classic example of being penny wise and pound foolish. I'm afraid that's what we're doing. I believe that in terms of cost effectiveness, legal compliance, and certainly moral obligation, the most appropriate decision is to leave communication access in place. Clearly, this is a discussion that requires more than the 3 minutes or so that are allotted here. And I would be very willing to have that discussion with anybody who is interested in doing so.
Could you wrap it up, please? We're getting close to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll end with my thanks and with my willingness to discuss it further should anyone be interested. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Jason?
Good evening. I'm Jason Troya. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to listen to me talk tonight. A little about myself. I'm 31 years old. I moved to Long Beach from San Francisco a year ago because I had to leave a prosperous career after 7 years because of a rare neurological condition that I have. I returned to school to retrain myself so that in 5 to 6 years, when my body completely gives out, I'll have a marketable skill that I can fall back on. I started in the honors program mainly because the regular courses here are so hard to register for, but I quickly learned the profound value of the program. One honors professor approached me one day and said, "Hey, you're a really good writer. You should consider being an English major." I took her suggestion, and after the semester ended, she became my mentor, forging a lifelong relationship. I've accomplished a great deal this year, maintaining a 4.0 ever since I came here, while taking a very heavy course load. I presented at the Thank you. I presented at the HTCC Research Conference, one of the 6 or 7 students who were the very first students ever from Long Beach City College to present at the HTCC Research Conference, by the way. I'm participating in a summer program at UC Santa Cruz. I've nearly finished my first manuscript. I'm been asked to be a research assistant to a former professor this summer. And also, I'm one of only 72 students in the country to be accepted to a summer writing program at Yale.
Sir, could you talk about the reduction
Yes.
in force and budget deficit?
I'm getting there.
Slowly.
You can say that these accomplishments are entirely due to me, but that would be an incorrect assumption. It's easy to psych oneself out and end up not even applying for such intimidating programs out of fear of rejection. But I had the encouragement and guidance of many people in the honors program, Maureen Mason, Alta Costa, and the many professors who recognized something in me that I didn't even know was there. I would say that 60% of it is talent and the rest is entirely due to the selfless support given to me by the countless people who have helped me to achieve my goals. Part of our mission is to provide open access to educational opportunities for all of our students. By virtue of the nature of Long Beach being the 6th most poverty-stricken city in the country and also the most diverse city in the country, we have a special responsibility to our community. Most of our students are trying to better their lives, pull themselves from their abject poverty, and we have an ethical duty as a public academic institution to help foster that. I'm representative of the type of student who will be bearing the brunt of all of these cuts that you're making. I know that this is an elected body and that you all likely ran for office because you believe in the value of a public education and that you ultimately have the best interests of the students at heart when you make these decisions. I call on you to keep those thoughts in your mind when you're voting on this measure. Of course, cuts are sometimes necessary, but no college should be cutting or should be making cuts that undermine the very academic integrity of our institution. These proposed cuts target the most vulnerable students and the highest achieving students in an institution that not so long ago was at risk of losing our accreditation. The gateway to the future that we so eloquently talk about in the vision statement of our foundation will be slammed closed if these cuts go into effect. In the Long Beach Business Journal back on October or January 31st. Sorry.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up. Could you please? You're getting close to 5 minutes.
Okay. President Oakley, in the Long Beach Business Journal on January 31st, stated, and I quote, "The fiscal situation for our college is good. We are in good shape. Our Board of Trustees has done a good job ensuring that we maintain a healthy degree of fiscal prudence. So, at least for the foreseeable future, we feel that our reserves are sufficient to continue to get us through the economic crisis that California faces." I'm at a loss. Either we're in dismal shape or we're in solid shape. I mean, there's really no middle ground. So does it depend on the audience who we're talking to, or?
Sir, I'm going to please have to wrap up.
Thank you.
Are you Alexa Castanova?
No, Andrea Donado.
I'm sorry?
Andrea Donado.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, members of the board. Good evening, students. I am an ESL student in Long Beach City College. I'm also part of the Miguel Contreras Foundation intern. And I am here to speak for ESL students and for me. Dear members of the board, the reason we are presenting today is because we are aware of the cuts that the college must address. As ESL students, we would like you to consider our situation in this country. We are here for different reasons, but all of us are pursuing higher education, a dream for us and for our families. We are a big part of the population in Long Beach. For those of us learning English, to have the possibility to interact and participate in this country is really important. For living here, helping our kids in the school, understanding the system and the laws, in addition to other factors, language fluency is essential. English is a really complex language that we cannot learn once a week. We need many classes to understand not just the idiom, but the culture and the way of thinking. The ESL program at this college has a really good program that has been helping us a lot for our daily lives. We would like it not to be affected. We want successful lives in the United States. The ESL Learning Center, when we have the possibility to ask questions at any time, and when we have the possibility to practice, is something really important for our future in this country. This ESL Learning Center also helps us to learn better and faster. The summer courses are also really important. At this moment, only 2 courses are planned, and those are for really advanced levels. We would like to have a 270 level course also, where those of us in the intermediate level can attend, and 1 course for the lower levels, between the 843 and 845, where those of us in those levels can continue learning. Members of the board, I am Colombian, but also, as many of my friends here present, I am American since I was born in this country. And if I am able to speak here today, it's because I have been taking ESL classes. We care about this college. And we care about the city of Long Beach. Cuts in education are never a good business. Nobel Prize in Economy, Robert E. Lucas, together with Susawa, proved that education does generate growth. Maybe the taxes we are paying today as students are low, but with education, the taxes we are going to pay in the future are going to be 10 to 15 times more. And the more taxes, the more money for the city, including the college. And the more opportunities for everybody.
If you can wrap up, please.
Yeah. In this envelope, I have 473 signatures signed by ESL students and non-ESL students because that support our program and our community. I'm asking here you today, do you support our program and our community? We are waiting, hopefully, for a positive answer from you, member of the Board of Trustees. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next. Name, please.
A student counselor of PCC, and I'm representing the ESL student over there. But now I'm coming to you, asking you or representing all the diversity people here at this college, okay? And many of us were like myself. I come from drugs, programs, and many of us have disabilities too. And we find this college, and we decided to get educated, to get a good education. And now, that our dream is being down because there is not a lot of classes for us. And like Andrea brought, that we got together all these senators because we have a lot of ESL students that they were asking, how come there are only 2 ESL classes for us when we are hundreds of students of ESL? And part of the community of Long Beach, they're Latinos. And if I understand, the college gets a good money for the Latino, especially for the Latino community, and that because we are part of the the Spanish Serving Institute, okay? And I asking you to have some more classes, especially for that levels. Like many of us, we don't understand really English to go to transfer classes right now because we are not able to we will be not able to understand the lessons that the teacher will give. So I think we need more ESL classes, more computer classes. Also, we have only 2 computer classes for all the students in college, and we need how to learn how to type. We need how to learn how to write essays, how to write a research paper for our classes. And also the ESL Learning Center is really important to us. We are losing 2 people from our ESL department. One of them is Yolanda Varela, and she's really helping to all the students right there. Because over there, I work too doing social work over there, and I see many students coming through the whole day, getting printing paper, we help them to research paper, we help them to do homework, even sometimes to check for their email because they don't have a section in their house. And they need to do homework or teachers send an email to them. And we need to help them. And I think we need a ESL. And that's why we are a lot of here ESL students asking for you to put some more ESL classes, especially to the lowest levels. Thank you very much.
Mercedes Salinas.
Hi, my name is Mercedes Salinas. I'm one of the students. I really don't honestly have much to say, but I'm here to support every single instructor that's in here that's getting laid off. And I'm begging you guys to take into consideration how much budget, how much classes you guys will be cutting, and how it's going to affect every single student. I don't understand how this community college can be labeled as a community college if it's doing all these cuts and it's laying off all these instructors, knowing that these students need these courses in order to move forward. And you guys are receiving all these raises and not putting us into consideration that without us, you guys wouldn't be here. Thank you.
Natalie Lee. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Natalie Lee, an international student from Vietnam. I'm speaking again on behalf of all international and domestic students who are here in this room and in the other room who are concerned about the fate of international student program with the proposed cut in staffing. Last week, international students submitted a petition package, 11 petition package to, and with 492 signatures to the Board of Trustees and the LBCC administrators. We only received one single response from Vice President Greg Peterson and the Dean of Student Affairs, Connie Sears. We truly appreciate your acknowledgement of our concerns. However, you did not answer our main questions in regards about reevaluating decisions of eliminating our manager. Let me review some facts about the international student program. We have remained the highest graduation transfer rate and 0% in dropout compared to any other student groups. Yearly, out of 300 graduates, 50 international students graduate with their AA or transfer to universities.
Is this the same testimony you gave last time?
No. It's
Go
a
ahead.
different one.
Go ahead.
Yeah. This accomplishment could not be achieved if we do not meet up with our academic counselor regularly. Judy O, she's the one who makes sure we take 12 units and give permission to take classes in other colleges. And along with a constant email reminder from our manager and the immigration advisor about visa status renewal, working authorization, and workshops. A few weeks ago, there was an honors workshop to recruit more international students to the program. Also, today, there was an international student transfer fair. We would not know about these workshops if there weren't any of those email reminders. And the demand in the office is impossible to be fulfilled by one staff, Nelly Delgado. This will create a huge delays in all of our situation when they are all time-sensitive matters. For example, for current students, it usually takes 7 to 10 business days in order to fulfill a request, such as signing their immigration documents for travel, transfer to other school, and any other immigration documents related. And for prospective students, it's not gonna take 10 days for the evaluation period. It will at least take 1 month to process their file and admit it to the school. So simply, to meet our needs, we can transfer to other school and seek better support and services. I did my little research, and there are 3 staff to serve 225 students at Cypress and Fullerton College, 4 of them to serve 205 students at Cerritos College. Our current ratio in here, 3 staff to serve 200 students, is within the range, and we do not need to be reduced. There are a total of 200 international students here, and we are required to fulfill the federal immigration regulation to take at least 12 units per semester and being insured. Based on rough calculation,
Could you wrap it up, please? You're getting close to 5 minutes.
200 students multiplied by 12 units, multiplied by $224 per unit, multiplied by 2 semesters, exceeds $1 million each year.
Now, I remember this testimony from last time.
But that wasn't from me. That was from my manager.
You know, it's if we have already have the information, you're going to get in the way of other people being allowed to speak.
I'm on
Please
my
wrap up.
conclusion right now. Yeah. Bring up to my conclusion, laying off my manager position. The college saves some money, but can the college afford losing yearly $1 million plus revenue, jeopardize current prospective students, deprive international students from the opportunity to be served by a professional expert who helps us understand the complex issue of immigration and federal regulation, and avoid delays in this fast-paced environment. We came to LBCC with a dream of earning US degrees, and please don't make us transfer to other school or dispromote LBCC.
Thank you very much. Could we have Leslie Bowles, Emilio James Uranga, Gary Creethers, Amanda Ford, and Lee Johnson up, please? So, Emiliano, why don't you get started?
Hello, my name is Emiliano Uranga. I'm a current student here at Long Beach City College. I'm also a student intern with the Miguel Contreras Foundation. I hope to transfer next semester with a major in communications. And I'm here to address the Long Beach City College community from the students' perspective on the impact of these budget cuts as they have affected each and every one of us. I'm not here to make enemies. I want to build bridges because these cuts affect everyone in this room. Sacramento has struck us hard with cutting education, and I ask the board to keep in mind, please, first and foremost, student success and completion when considering making any further cuts. It is unfortunate that community colleges are being cornered with these difficult decisions, and the fingers are pointing in every direction, blaming everyone for everything else. When decisions like this in education come to a head, everyone's agendas are in play. And numerous attempts come from different entities to change that culture, so there always seems to be a sense of inertia when it comes to the decision-making process. These cuts that are coming from Sacramento affect everyone in this room, both left and right. Believe me, I know, because parents still have to send their kids to college. However, students, teachers, board members alike, we must realize that education systems lie in the institutions that we attend, the system that we are all a part of. Whether it be chair of the department or chair of the board, we have the capacity to change that system immediately if we choose to. And if enough people do that, it will lead to social change. And it starts from the bottom up, from Long Beach all the way up to Sacramento. And every single one of us here has that ability at Long Beach City College. Learning is personal and is a personal experience and should engage values and, most importantly, develop a sense of community. In these tough times, we must continue to encourage learning and education and not create animosity between ourselves. Students should not be afraid of a college education. It should not be a death sentence. No one wins when students no longer want to go to school. When issues arrive that involve people's aspirations and hopes, anxieties and uncertainties, social change is unpredictable and challenging. And these are challenging times. And in every challenge, there lies opportunity. Keep our opportunity alive as students for an affordable and fair education tomorrow by seizing your opportunity today. Thank you.
Thank you. Your name, please.
Hello, my name is Amanda Ford. I gave a flyer to the secretary that we have plenty for all
Ms.
of
Ford, you put down here on the subject here is reduction in force and budget deficit. Are you talking to that, or are you talking to another item?
I am talking to that and to the effect it has on the students and the staff and the faculty.
Okay, I was confused because you wrote funeral for death of education, which is an event next week, I think.
And that is part of the effect it's having on these people.
Okay, go.
Well, I'm just here on behalf of the staff and the students and the faculty to invite all of the board members to the event. It's sponsored by all the groups I just mentioned, and it's regarding the cuts, which are endangering this college's ability to provide higher education to the people who seek it. So I invite you to attend on Tuesday, May 1st at noon, and it's at the grassy area just across Carson, and I promise you will not be able to miss it. I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Name, please. Name, please.
My name is An Shabitai, and good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here today. Because English is my second language, so I'm going to try my best to present as well as I can. So, again, my name is An Tai, and I am currently a freshman international student in LBCC. 9 months ago, I was a girl who set the first step in America. I came here without any relatives or friends. I left my family and my friends in Vietnam in order to get the better education than my country. However, when I actually been here, I know that I have to stay stronger, although I cried all the way from Vietnam to America on the airplane. because I know that I have to go by my own from then. And in the orientation day, I finally have a chance to getting to know the staff in the international office. And I realized that, oh, I have support right here and they are willing to help me and they will stay beside me. Because of their enthusiasm, their friendliness, and their professionalism, I felt I could cope with my new life in America. The office has become my second home. Most of my friends gather downstairs, and most of them are international students. There are so many of them who have the same situation as mine. Came here without any relative or friends, and learned to adapt a new culture and new education system. How to maintain a good visa every year, that is what our concern every year and every day. In addition, if our manager is not longer be our manager anymore, then it's gonna be a big hole, a big shock, and a big loss for all international students, because we consider him as our biggest brother in the international student family. I know it's very hard for the staff downstairs to help us because of the difference of languages and different cultures. However, they have performed a great job ever. And not only being helped, but also their understanding and their sharing have become a part of our lives. It is hard to grow without them. International students are very conscious and responsible about their education, and I believe that international students definitely can bring the huge benefit and the pride for LBCC. In shortly, I am proud to be an international student here at LBCC, and I hope that you will do me and all the international students a tremendous favor is help us to save our manager, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lee Johnson. I am here. I'm a returning student. I am one of the faces of the 20 million Americans who have lost their jobs, and everyone tells you to go back to school and retool. I really wish that you would reconsider your program for cutting the library services and the computer services. I think that that is a foundation for this college, and it's the foundation for the community, for anybody who wants to come here and use the library services. It's very important for me to retool so that I have the expertise that I need to go back into the community and work. I cannot do that if I don't have someone to ask who is an expert in there to help me further my education. We also need the computer services upstairs. It's very important to go in there from day one. I don't want to have to go in there and talk to another student and ask them how to do something when it should be a faculty up there who has expert knowledge to help me maneuver the various programs that I need. So I really wish that you would rethink your decision on laying off a lot of the library staff and the computer people upstairs. They're really needed for the community as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That ends the public comment on agenda items section. We now have the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda unless someone on the board wants to pull an item therefrom.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Agenda item 5.3, this is a resolution concerning board member absence compensation. Dr. Clark, who I wanted to personally say welcome back, had been in the hospital and recuperating, and we're glad to have you back in the meeting again and share your experience with us here on the dais. Tom Clark has probably forgotten more than we'll all know in his some 50 years of community service.
I almost think I should have stayed another week.
All right.
Move approval of 5.3.
Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
And Dr. Clark abstains. Agenda item 5.4, it's a resolution for reduction of classified service. I would entertain a motion. Tom?
We've had reductions over the last 3 years and probably some before that. And I've hoped that we weren't going to have to get to something like layoffs. It's unfortunate that this state, which had probably the best educational system in the world for many years, and many of us went through that system, no tuition. Access was there because we built universities, many universities, state universities and the UC system to provide for the students. This state was very education oriented. And then about the 90s, things started to change. We started to get tuition. We started to get things of that nature, but we still had the resources. The state was still supportive. And more we're finding that people don't want to pay taxes. They want all sorts of benefits. They want education, they want health care, they want retirement. They don't want to pay anything for it. That goes back to the good old days of Prop 13. People don't realize the tremendous effect that made on this local government, schools, county. Having been a student here and having had my daughter and my son go to Long Beach, it hurts me, I think, even more than otherwise to feel that we have to move in a direction that will protect us. I don't have a great deal of optimism in regard to what we're looking at later this year. And I think we do have to protect ourselves so at that point we don't have to look at layoffs and things of that nature. So, Mr. President, I do make a motion that we support this item.
Okay. It's to approve the resolution. Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there a presentation about how we got to this decision? I think it's important for the community to know the process that's been gone through.
Yes, Board President Otto, in anticipation of many of the concerns that were expressed today and prior to this board meeting, we prepared a brief PowerPoint presentation that I'd like to walk us through that gives a better sense of the decision-reaching process that we used, the reasons for the reductions, and hopefully answer some of the questions that were raised and certainly give an opportunity for the board to ask additional questions. First of all, let me begin by saying, although I realize that it does not provide much comfort, but every single one of these reductions, I am keenly aware, affects a person or persons that are very near and dear to my heart as president of this college. Long Beach City College, whether you want to believe it or not, has been my family for the last 10 years. And I've been involved in working with, hiring, and supporting many of the people that are in this room or are on these lists. So I realize that to many, these are just words, but let me be clear that every single person that's been involved in this process has been clear about the impact and has been reminded to keep that impact in their mind. So, given that, let me begin by backing up a bit. First of all, making the point that we have processes in place at Long Beach City College that we continue to use to bring constituent groups together to discuss the issues that are impacting the college. So one of those bodies is called the College Planning Committee, that is made up of representatives from the faculty leadership, classified leadership, administration, management team, all the constituent groups here at the college, with primary charge to assist the college in planning and setting priorities for the college. In discussing the reductions that had become apparent throughout many conversations and many committees, and in particular the Budget Advisory Committee, it was recommended that criteria be developed jointly at the College Planning Committee to guide any reductions that took place. So these criteria, which have been distributed throughout the college, that have been discussed, are the result of that process. So you can see the bullet points. I'll go through them quickly. Maintenance of health, safety, and statutory regulatory compliance. We need to make sure that we meet all of the laws and regulatory requirements that we have and protect the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff. Meeting legal, contractual, and accreditation obligations. I think that's pretty straightforward. Minimizing the impact on students as much as possible. Realizing that we can't completely eliminate the impact on students or any group, but certainly the goal has been and will be to minimize that impact. And as one of the students, I think it was Mr. Uranga who brought up, maintaining a focus on helping students get through to their educational goals, whether that be a certificate degree, an AA degree, or to transfer. That will be the focus, and that will continue to be the focus. So how would we minimize the impact? Well, some of the criteria to minimize the impact: the extent to which program, service, or activity advances student success, focus on certificate and degree completion as well as transfer, equitable impact for students on both campuses so that one campus is not singled out, and student access as measured by weekly student contact hours and full-time equivalent faculty ratios and other criteria that are sort of internal internal ratios that we want to make sure maintain equitable access. In addition, we looked at the extent to which the program, service, or activity advances the institutional priorities. The College Planning Committee sets institutional priorities that guide the work of the college. The degree to which the activity duplicates services, programs, or activities offered within the college or elsewhere in the surrounding area. Now, obviously, we have two campuses, two very large campuses, even though we're one college. And I realize it's difficult to understand the distinction, but we are funded as one college. And we have tried over the years and over the history of our college to maintain adequate services at both campuses. The guiding principle here was to look at those services to see which ones are being duplicated and which ones can be reduced so that service is maintained, but obviously at a reduced level. Evidence of employer demand and or community need for the program or activity. So looking at employer data, looking at how our certificates or degrees are transferring into jobs in the community and looking at programs that are no longer providing that kind of economic impact and focusing on those. Effect on existing workloads and the impact of position reductions. Now, to many of you who have spoken this evening, that is a big question in your minds. How are we going to continue to have the existing workload maintained given the position reductions? Although I'll touch on this a little later, I want to remind folks that we have been reduced in funding and access through enrollment reductions by approximately 2,000 full-time equivalent students. So we are operating and we are being funded as a smaller college. And I realize many of you are concerned about that, and you should be. Certainly, I know my colleague Ron Reel from the CCA has been vocal about this issue in Sacramento, and so have we. We have worked together with the faculty organizations in Sacramento to make sure this message is brought across. Unfortunately, it has not had the impact that we would like it to have so far, but that conversation will continue. But realizing that we're going to be at those levels, and if the tax measure doesn't pass, even lower levels for the foreseeable future, for the next 3, 4, 5 years, we have to reduce our staffing to meet that reduction in workload from the state. We are a smaller college, whether we liked it or not, and we have to adjust the staffing. Now, what we have done in the past is try to push off that decision through furloughs and other one-time measures. And I realize many people may be critical of that decision not to act 3 years ago, as many colleges did. Just to our south, Rancho Santiago Community College District laid off well over 100 employees 3 years ago. It was our desire to try and maintain the bulk of our workforce through this as long as we could, until we would finally realize that there are no new revenues coming in the foreseeable future. So we had to begin to adjust to that new reality. Sorry about that. Okay, so CPC developed, let me make sure I didn't miss one. Okay, CPC developed a recommended process for formulating budget reductions to guide the administration in how those reductions should be made, realizing that there is not one reduction that everyone could agree on. But the vice presidents agreed to apply all criteria that are applicable to each proposed reduction, so every single reduction is linked back to those criteria. The vice presidents agree to consult with deans, directors, department heads, and/or frontline supervisors. The vice presidents formulate a list of recommended budget reductions considering feedback from those consultants, and that certainly has happened in many, many cases. There has been continued working and reworking of some of these decisions based on the feedback that has been received. Now, has that affected every decision? No. But certainly several of the decisions were impacted because of the extensive feedback we got. And some would be critical that we began this process too early. But the purpose of beginning earlier was to get as much feedback from all the constituent groups as we could before this resolution came to the board. And then finally, the vice president formulated a list of recommended budget reductions for the superintendent president. Those recommendations came to me. A list was finalized, and it provides written rationale for the proposed reductions that total $5.1 million. Now, why $5.1 million? Where does that number come from? First of all, our college has had significant budget reductions for the last 3 years, which have significantly impacted our ability to serve the needs of the students. We have run several deficits in our budget trying to continue to fund those. One of the issues that I realize for many in the audience don't really understand how the state finances us And I don't fault you because the way the state finances us is completely ridiculous. But having said that, it is the way they finance us. And so, as one gentleman discussed, my comments in January, and let me make clear what my comments were, that the Board of Trustees has provided the appropriate fiscal prudence to get us through these economic times. And that is still true today. By proposing policies that keep us to a 5% reserve, and by working with the college to ensure that we have clear focus on where the funds that we have should be focused. And those can be clearly found in the Board of Trustees goals. Furthermore, at that time, we were looking at the governor's trigger cuts that he proposed in January and enacted in January. My response at that time was to those cuts. Subsequently to that, we've received several more rounds of bad news, which were not included in the governor's January budget, which we had to react rather quickly to try to gain some ground on. Quite frankly, you know, we have proposed and will run and fund summer session, but that summer session really is being paid for through those reserves because we are not receiving funding for many of the students that we are now serving. So this whole budgeting process is very dynamic, changes from day to day as revenue projections come in to the state controller's office, as revenues are collected, as property taxes collected, and I realize, believe me, that this is a very confusing process. But we're having to deal with this on a week-to-week, on a month-to-month basis. And then you add on top of that the uncertainty of the governor's proposed 2012-2013 budget, which is based on a tax measure passing in November. And by the way, I know my colleague Ron Reel mentioned that we should wait, but let me be clear as to why we can't wait. Even if the governor's tax initiative passes, our college will not receive any new revenue. Let me be clear, our college will not receive any new revenue. What it does is save us from future cuts, and certainly we support the governor's effort to protect us from future cuts. But it does not provide us with any money to add the services, programs, of the employees that we've lost over the last several years. And that is certainly the unfortunate part of this situation, that we are dealing with a ballot measure that doesn't provide us any new revenue, but keeps us from being cut more in January. And I realize that's a sad situation, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. So, our budget projections. We have two columns, the best case projection, number one, which is the tax measure passes in November, and the worst case projection two, which if the measure fails in November, where we will be if the governor's cuts do come to fruition. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but you can certainly go through them, and if the board has any questions, I know the board has seen these many, many times. But the bottom line is that currently we're running a projected deficit. You see that line under projected ending fund balance, June 30th, 2012, of $7.7 million in the best case scenario. And then if we will have revenue increases or decreases. So we project an ending fund balance at the end of June 30th, 2013 of $733,733. That is the best case scenario. Now I know many people will argue, well, don't we have reserves? Where is that rainy day fund? And I will remind everyone that the state of California has deferred millions and millions of dollars of our revenue. The state of California owes us over $20 million, owes K-12 and community colleges billions of dollars that it has not paid and will not pay us anytime soon. So there is a big difference between an accounting entry, a number of what revenue we should have or what we're owed, versus what money we actually have. And we have to realize that that is an enormous gap. And part of what the tax measure will do was begin to close that gap, so we will actually begin to receive the cash that is owed to us. So we have to always keep in mind that what cash we actually have to continue to provide services, and what revenues do we expect to receive going forward into the future. You see, the worst case scenario is we have a hole of over $4 million. Obviously, we all hope that, and will work hard to not have the worst case scenario come to fruition, but that's certainly something that the board must plan for. Tax measures in California are not very successful. We hope that they will be this time. So we have, in the best case scenario, a shortfall of what the board required reserve is of 5% of $4.7 million. So the $5.1 million helps us close that gap and helps us begin to close about 3/4 of the projected operating deficit, which has become now a structural deficit that just keeps being pushed from year to year forward. And is something that we will have to deal with on a permanent basis. So that gets to the question of why permanent reductions. Our college's revenues have permanently been reduced, and our expenditures continue to go up. We have the expenses of our ongoing employee benefits, and employee benefits and salaries are 87% of the budget. 87%. That does not give us a lot of room to provide the services we need to the students who are here today. So that's the budget projections. So the positions that are impacted, I think many of you already are aware, but just to reiterate, there are 14 positions in the management ranks being eliminated, 9 layoffs, and 5 that are vacant. 2 positions have been created through reorganization of other areas. And by the way, in terms of fairness, we looked at the reductions in the classified staff and the management staff as a percentage of the total cut that needed to be made, and both came out to be about equivalent, 6.65% for the classified staff, 6.36% for the management staff. For the classified, as many of you know and have been speaking to, 49 positions are proposed to be eliminated, 45 from layoffs and 4 vacancies. 7 positions have been created through reorganizations of other areas, so we've reduced in some areas and created new positions to continue to serve the needs of the students. 96 positions reduced in either number of months or percentage of time, 95 incumbents, and 1 vacancy. So what's next? Now that we are moving beyond this point, and because of the personnel, our personnel regulations that require the use of seniority and other bumping situations and scenarios, we don't know for sure how everything is going to play out until those things are worked through. So once we begin to get a better idea of that, open forums for the college community to discuss the impact of programs and or services as a result of the employee reductions are going to happen. At this time, we have not eliminated any programs. We do not anticipate nor plan to eliminate any programs from this round of reductions. So I realize that many people are concerned about the International Students Program or the Honors Program. Those programs will not be eliminated. Certainly, students will be impacted because there's a reduction in the workforce, but those programs will continue. And we will continue to adjust if our enrollment continues to be pushed down. We have potential future cutbacks totaling $4.8 million if the November tax measure fails. So that's a clear a number based on the governor's plan if the tax measure fails. Now, for those of you who like to follow the political process in Sacramento, you know that these numbers will continue to change over time during the entire budget deliberation process, during a final budget, and then finally in January, if the ballot measure fails or passes, what the governor's January budget will look like. But all we can plan with is what the governor has proposed, and he has proposed reducing Long Beach City College's budget by another $4.8 million should the tax measure fail. So we must plan for that. So let me just make a couple other comments that are not on my presentation that had come up. This is a permanent reduction, yes. But if revenues come back to Long Beach City College and we're asked to grow enrollments at some point in the future, we will adjust the staffing then. If we're expected to grow this college again into the future, then we will have to readdress the staffing needs of the college. Hopefully that day will come. I certainly hope it does. There were questions about revenue measures, revenue ideas. How can we raise more money? How can we do things differently? And this is my own personal statement, not a reflection of the board statement, but you know, Californians are schizophrenic. We want more and better education for our students. The students are sitting in this audience. But we continue to refuse to provide the public funding to do that. Secondly, there have been many ideas proposed in Sacramento which have not received very good welcome so far. I'm not here to advocate for or support the Santa Monica College model, but certainly that has been an attempt to find ways to create more class sections, to save jobs, and to raise revenue. And that has been pretty much rejected. Similarly, we have proposed legislation, and it's working its way through the legislature. So far, it has been embraced by the legislature to significantly limit our ability to add more sections in career technical education in those areas that I know our students want jobs in, but we can't give them the classes, to allow us to add sections, to use our faculty, to use our staff, and to hopefully provide jobs for our staff through Senate Bill 1550. We have worked with the legislature, with the staff, and with the leadership of the faculty in Sacramento to try and craft a piece of legislation that could be supported. But even as I speak, our leadership, our faculty leadership, rejects those ideas. So we are trying to find different ways of getting to this issue. And we will continue. And those ideas may go nowhere. But at some point, we have to come to some understanding that if the government of this state is not going to provide us the resources, we have to find ways to provide those. Finally, there's been a lot of discussion, as was brought up earlier, about having administrators or the superintendent president give back money to the college. Let me be clear. Beginning in 2009-10, the entire management team, including the administration and the president, took a voluntary pay cut. A total of 4.07%, which provided $395,000 to the college's general fund. In 2010-11, the management team took a 6.15% reduction in pay, which provided $620,000 to the college. In 2011-12, the administration gave 3.08% pay reduction, which provided $339,000. And in 2012-13, I will continue to take a pay reduction of 3.08% into the new year. These are all been voluntary. Now, I realize to many that's not enough. And I'm not going to argue that point with you, but I just want to make it clear that the administrators and management team have reduced their pay for the last 3 years voluntarily. Even though we have only asked, and I certainly empathize with the classified staff, they did take a salary decrease 2 years ago. They were one of the only units to take a decrease in addition to the management staff. These are certainly things that continue to inform the decision-reaching process. Then finally, I do want to, as part of this, state that we have been working with the faculty union. We have reached an agreement at the negotiating table on a way forward. I want to thank the negotiating team for the faculty union for working with us in a collegial, professional fashion to find a solution to some of these issues. We're hopeful that those solutions are supported by the entire faculty to help us move forward into the future. So that concludes, to members of the board, that concludes my presentation. I've tried to answer several of the questions that have come up, but certainly if the board members have other questions, be happy to take those.
Questions from the board?
One aspect of the presentation that was not included was the effect our vote does this evening in regards to what is being presented before us. And just for clarification to the audience, the board does not negotiate. We're not part of the team that decides where the cuts are being made. Our fiduciary responsibility being here is basically to determine how to keep the college afloat, how to keep it functional, how to sustain programs, how to reach the goals that we all want to reach, and that includes keeping programs functioning, whether it be ESL, honors programs, library services. Those programs will continue. I can assure you that. The only, well, the drawback on that is the fact that they will continue, but perhaps not the same as we had before. There's going to be a functional reduction. And when we look at reductions, we look at the reductions, we say, well, we might be able to reduce the president superintendent's salary by X amount. It is a reduction. It is not a reconfiguring of the money to go into more classes or to hire another professor. When it's a reduction, it's a reduction. It's gone. It's not taking from Tom, excuse me, Tom, let me rephrase that. Taking it from Dick and giving it to Harry. It doesn't function that way. A reduction is a reduction, and it's gone. What we need to do and what we're looking at doing here, and that's something that, I can't speak for my colleagues, obviously, because they might have their own ideas as to what we are doing here this evening, and I'm certainly looking forward to their comments as well. But the bottom line is that we need to look at how we're going to stay as a college. And I can tell you that there are many people out there who look at us at Long Beach City College, and yeah, we have done pretty well. In fact, we're one of the last colleges to actually deal with layoffs. Many other colleges, you mentioned Rancho Santiago, there was Mount Sac a few years ago, gave pink slips to all their faculty because they were dealing with some serious reductions, and they made some. So we have been trying our damnedest to try to sustain and keep jobs, because we know that when we're looking at Long Beach City College, we're talking about people. We're talking about people who provide the instruction, and we're talking about people who receive that instruction, and we're talking about people who bring in the grants and bring in the programs to sustain those classes and those programs alive. So we're dealing with people, and unfortunately, when you have a budget situation that happens in Sacramento, as President Superintendent Oli mentioned, and when we provide them with options, we provide them with the figures, we provide them with the compelling stories of students who have struggled, who have stories to tell, and who are here because they want to pursue their education, because they want to get a better job, because they want to retool, retrain, prepare for the future. Those are the compelling stories we tell them. But sometimes we're talking to deaf ears up there. I just came back from a conversation from a president superintendent from Oklahoma, and he says, "What are you guys doing out there in California? You're all dysfunctional. California is going to hell because California doesn't seem to think that education is important. And all you have to do is look at the papers within the last couple of months, and you could see what the budget cuts have done, not only to community colleges, but to the UCs, the CSUs. You are looking at transferring Have you read the papers lately? Have you seen what increases they've done to their tuition out there? And then you see where they've been giving raises to their new superintendent presidents out there. You think that the CSU students aren't pissed off? They're not mad? Of course they are. They're protesting up and down the state. And that's what you have to do. You have to protest up there. If I had the money, I'd get 5, 10 buses right now. I would drive one of them if I had a Class A license. And go up to Sacramento and camp out there like the what's that movement right now? Let's occupy Sacramento for education. I think that's what we have to do, because they're not paying attention up there. They're not listening to us. But they will listen to you, because you are the students. You're the ones that are most affected by this. And you might want to look at us as a board. We're the elected officials. It's our responsibility, yes, to determine the policy and the direction that the college must take. But it's Sacramento's responsibility to give us the tools to do our jobs. I was asked earlier, some of you might know or noticed that I had my son. I didn't have my son. My son volunteered to come up here and present. And he asked me, what's going on? I said, well, basically, when it comes right down to it, we have no money. And we're not getting any more money, and they're not listening to us. And so basically, when it comes right down to it, if I don't have the money, I can't afford your education itself either. I might need to get another job. Mama would have to get another job. And when it comes right down to it, if I look at it as a community of family, which Eloy said, this is his family, Long Beach City College. It is mine. This is my community. And I have to listen to my constituents. And my constituents are saying, education is broken. We need to fix it. And I say, I know. I hear it all the time. And I hear it across the state when I talk to my colleagues, not only across the state, but across the country as to what's happening. And right now, community colleges are the main focus in terms of what's going on with community colleges. And they're talking about the impacts that community colleges have, not only with our economic recovery, but the future of our country. And we're talking about how community colleges is the focal point of providing an educated workforce that can provide for the skills for tomorrow. But that's all talk. That's all rhetoric, because they're not walking the walk, and they're not spending the money. But they are talking about it. So having said all that, when we look at what we need to do today and the challenge that we have today, we have to consider the fact that we have, and this board is looking at programs, sustainability of the campus, sustainability of us as a college. And we will never look at programs that are going to go away that will definitely negatively impact students, because that is not our mission. That is not our goal. Let me read you our mission. It's awfully long, but this is it. Long Beach City College is an institution of higher education within the California Community College system. As a comprehensive college, Long Beach City College provides quality, affordable educational programs and related student services to those who can benefit from the programs the college offers. Through a collegiate experience and with the open doors admission policy, the college fosters the development of individual potential and is responsive to the diverse educational needs of the community it serves. The primary purposes of the educational programs are to prepare students for transfer to baccalaureate granting institutions, entry into the workforce or career development, and to support businesses and industry and economic development. You've heard a lot of that today, this evening. Long Beach City College offers general education and vocational education at the lower division level, and transitional instruction and those support services that promote student success, remedial education. English as a second language instruction, adult non-credit courses, and student support services. College programs and services educate citizens to enrich the quality of life in the community. That's what we're all about. That's what this board is looking at. And we want to sustain those programs, and we're going to help you do it. But we can't do it without your support and without your help. We need it. We need your help and support. And it's unfortunate that people get hurt. And there are going to be people hurt. But until Sacramento changes its focus and determines that education is important, it's not going to happen. So that's where we need to focus, up there. And I would recommend that this mission be right there, right behind us, so that every day when we meet here, we see that mission up there, and we keep that focus as to this is why we're here. And community is right in the middle of our name. Thank you.
Mark.
I'd just like to briefly mention that what was said in connection with my earlier comments about a year ago about having a rainy day fund when we'd been, criticized for keeping too large a reserve, and I said we had a need for that. I think what we just saw in this presentation, further emphasizes the importance of what I said back then, that with the reserve that we built up, with the best case scenario, we are almost $5 million in the red, and we are using that rainy day fund right now. And if we had not built up the kind of reserve we had in the past that have been criticized, the kind of layoffs we would have right now would be in order to rectify that budget situation that we see there would be a lot more. And it's very, very, very unfortunate that we're in this situation. I wish I had a better answer, but as far as why we're in that situation, I will just say ditto to what's already been said by Trustee Clark and Trustee Uranga.
Trustee Kellogg.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief, just as I know Trustee Otto wanted everyone in the audience to do. My comment's going to be directed to the individuals in the classified staff. No disrespect to the other individuals that came here to speak tonight about their programs, but in particular tonight, the ones that are bearing the burden of this is the classified staff. The fact that it has been mentioned, 49 people are going to lose their jobs, essentially. 150 people's lives have been affected because they're in this bumping process. 96 are going to be reassigned. Terminology, you're not going to have as much pay at the end of the day. And there's no joy in tonight of what we're doing. And my colleagues, we all realize this, and to all the individuals here in the audience who, from the faculty, full-time, part-time, classified staff management, we have over the course of the last 3 years have gone from the $101 million budget to the $88 million budget. We've done things we need to do to survive, to keep providing the services to the students, but it's taken a tremendous toll on individuals. And there are no words that is going to make that any softer. I also realize that in our planning for the November initiative, and I hate to sit there and point fingers because people, that's an easy way, and Sacramento is an easy punching bag right now. But at the same time, I'm not going to let them ever get off the hook when they're saying there's no money. There's money. It's where's your priority. Education is not a priority. They can say it. They can talk about it. It's not a priority because these community colleges have done more with less over the course of the time. And we keep doing things like this that impact people's lives. So as I listen to everyone come forward, coming up with ideas, trying to, even though if I've heard some of the ideas before, keep coming forward with them. Some that were presented tonight we have looked at as far as we've talked about this past, about how we restructure our management to where in other colleges, while we brought up about they have so many VPs, and there's usually a lot of answers to those questions that we've already gone through. And because we're looking at every way humanly possible to find ways to get through this. But as we mentioned, this is a structural. This isn't a cyclical process. This is structural. It's never going to be the same, unfortunately. And so as people came forward here tonight, I would just like to, I know it's not easy. It's definitely not easy for us as board members to sit here and listen about it, about the fate. But, when you have individuals come up here and they talk about, one young lady came up and talked about losing a job in the private sector. And sometimes you forget how devastated the private sector out there, people that are working no longer have jobs as well. And we have been fortunate in some ways to get through some difficult times, but unfortunately the difficult times are continuing. And then you hear the individual who essentially uses his hands for a living. And here's a man who's got to go back now, and those are just heartbreaking, but it's the reality of what we're facing. We don't have any way to soften the blow. If we could, we would. But we're going to work through it. But I want to make sure, because we do try to plan, and how I look at it so people do understand this. When I look at planning, I always hope for the best because you've got to be optimistic in this world. At the same time, I always plan for the worst. And it's always been that case with myself when I was on the Long Beach City Council and here on the Community College Board. I am not optimistic about what's going to happen in November with the state. They have yet to make me feel as if they can get their act together. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to plan that I'm not. And that means there's going to be some other hard hits for us. So I only can say to encourage, even though tonight is one of those evenings that we just dread, and we knew we were going to sit here, and I don't think any of us would disagree with one thing any of you have said as far as the impact and things of what's happening with the college and education. But we're going to work through it the best we can. We're going to represent the college the best we can. We're going to find ways, and they may be different than what we're even thinking about today on how we can survive in the future. So I thank everyone that took the time to come down here. I know it's not easy for us, but I know it's even more difficult for you because it just isn't a job, it's your life, it's your family, it's your children, it's everything you can plan on. And that's my frustration with which I look at the community college system in general in California and Long Beach City College in particular. We've done nothing wrong. We just keep taking the burden and trying to work forward. And the only reason I know we're going to get through it are people like yourselves and all the different people we have here. And we will get through it. I just hope we get through it sooner rather than later because it's just heart-wrenching to watch how some of you have to go through. I can't apologize for what we do as a board because we do the best we can. But I feel strongly that with all the people we have here, we're going to get through it. But it's not easy. And so thank you for coming down here and at least sharing yourself because we're always going to listen. Thank you, Doug.
You know, in the beginning of my comments, I made a mention about the effects that the vote will take. Could you explain to us what this basically means?
Yes, I'll try to make it brief because it can be sort of a complex process, and if there's any specific questions, I can turn them over to Vice President Delgadio. But basically, if assuming that the resolution is passed, and that begins a process, a personnel process by which Human Resources works with union and the affected employees to affect the bumping scenarios. Some employees may choose to bump, some may not choose to bump, some may choose to exercise other options, and thus that would impact the number of employees actually losing their jobs. So it's difficult to say what that will look like today.
Can you say what bumping is? Because I think some people
I will
know.
let the official explanation be given by Vice President Delgadio.
Yes, by our collective bargaining agreement, our employees have the right via seniority to bump into lower classifications, for example. And so if they have higher seniority, they may bump into a lower classification or they may bump into a position that is of a lesser assignment, but it's all based on seniority. So we have to systematically go through that process of giving the person who has as high a seniority the first option to make a decision what their choice is. And then from there, we follow through on the rest of the scenarios.
When you mean they bump into a lesser position, I think we need to explain that it's not lesser in the respect of any skill or smarts or anything like that. It might be an entry level position. It might be a position that a person might have held previously in their career that was entry level, and then that person or individual promoted up, and then that individual who promoted up has a right to come back to the position that was previously held in the past. Correct?
That is correct. Okay. Yes.
It's important to know that because when we're looking at this list here, there are going to be some individuals who have been with the college a number of years, who have promoted through the process, through the system, and have held previous positions elsewhere. And then that individual who is being bumped out of his or her position also has an opportunity to bump into another position. So talk about the complications of going it. It's lengthy, and in the end, we might find that a lot of these individuals here will not lose their jobs, or in fact, they will be in other positions. They might not be doing the same thing that they were doing before, but they have a job, and that's what it comes down to.
I did have some questions that I'd like to get answered if I can. And first, Rose, since you were talking about bumping rights and whatnot, are there any reemployment opportunities for people that might be laid off in the next, for some period of time? I believe the Education Code provides for things.
Yes, the Education Code provides for 39 months, up to 39 months of reemployment. So if between July 1st, when these...
You mean eligibility for reemployment?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So from July 1st, when these layoffs will take effect, 39 months forward, through that period, they will have an opportunity to return to the position if we refill that position.
So if these are eliminated positions, if they can return to positions that we've eliminated?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other and what you're saying, I think, is that for people who actually are laid off and their positions are eliminated, if those positions are reinstated because of the fact that we get more money from someplace, from Sacramento obviously, then they would have a preference to fill those positions?
Yes.
And that preference exists for 39 months?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, could we go back to our tech folks, the slide with the chart, the budget, there you go, thank you, budget projections. At the bottom, it says 5% board required reserve. That's a policy of the Board of Trustees. It used to be 5.5%, but we reduced it to 5% in these, last year I believe it was, with these dire economic.
Last 2 budget years.
Right, right. And is there any state requirement, minimum requirement for a Board of Trustees, and if so, where does that come from?
The Chancellor's Office provides a recommendation for a prudent level of reserves, and that is at 5%.
Okay. Now, if we were to have a reserve of less than 5%, are there any consequences that might come to us?
Yes, below 5%, the Chancellor's Office will begin to monitor the finances of a college and may, at some point, seek assistance by what we call FICMAC, which is, Vice President Gable can remind me what all that stands for.
FICMAT stands for Fiscal Crisis Management Assistance Team.
So the state would come in and help us manage our finances if we fell below that level.
Okay. And is there some sort of nadir or bottom at which anything else could happen, or is that pretty much it?
Well, if you get below 3%, then the state could take over.
Okay, okay. So it's not just our own policy, but it's a state policy that requires us to have prudent reserves. I mean, it is our policy, but and there are actual consequences if we don't do that.
Yes.
Now, on this chart, it says that if we didn't take the steps that we are being asked to take tonight, we would have a reserve, projected reserve, by the end of the next fiscal year of $734,000. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so that's about, I'm not sure I can do this in my head, but it's less than 1%. Is that right?
Yes,
about
if you
3/4 of a
consider,
percent?
yes, at what we would require is about 5.4 million. So 733,000 is less than 1%.
Okay. And so if we weren't to take some actions to shore this up, we would expect that acronym to be here pretty soon, I would expect.
Yes.
So we have to take some action, and it becomes a question of what action should we take. And you've outlined the process that we've gone through. But I wonder if you could give us a little more detail about, after the criteria were established, what the vice presidents were asked to do and what types of things they took into consideration.
Well, specifically, I asked the vice presidents to work on applying the criteria to reductions of the magnitude that would get us to that $5.1 million that we've identified, and to work with the deans, directors, and in the case of the instructional programs, department chairs, to discuss the impacts of those cuts and to understand how they would impact program services, things of that nature. So that is the directions that they received and have been working under those directions for the last couple of months, preparing the final recommendation, which is before you today.
And it's my understanding that what happened was that they went out, they met with deans, supervisors, department heads, and other people, and collectively they came up with what they thought the recommendations were and then brought them to you?
Yes, collectively they worked as the executive team to ensure that not only was the criteria applied, but that there was fairness across areas, to ensure that that there was a clear understanding and discussion about the cuts that were being proposed in each and every area so that the entire executive team could own the proposed cuts. And so that was done, and certainly there had been feedback throughout that process that required changes to be made in both student services and in academic affairs that continued to inform that process. Changes were made, and the other areas adjusted to those changes to ensure that we continued to meet the goal.
And after they were brought back to you, did you then meet with the executive team, and were some changes made even at that point based on learning about unintended consequences of what was going to happen to some extent?
Well, changes have been made all the way up to probably about 2 weeks ago or so. There weren't many changes made at the end because this has been an iterative process, and so many of those issues that could be worked out were worked out. Certainly there are some issues that were not worked out to the dissatisfaction of some, but the executive team felt that either they could not be worked out or we could maintain the services in another configuration. So I've met with the executive team on a number of occasions to be briefed on where we were, to ensure that I understood how these were being linked back to the criteria, and to understand how we were going to continue to provide the services once these cuts were made. So I am, although disappointed that we have to propose this, I am confident that the work of the executive committee was done to the satisfaction of the criteria and to the satisfaction of the goals of the board.
So we heard comments from many students and from many members of the classified staff, some members of the faculty tonight, about certain areas. Somebody talked about educational technologists, somebody talked about the learning centers, somebody talked about computer specialists and how important they were. How did you take those kinds of things into consideration, and what was, where did you feel like you had to arrive at in order to make your decisions?
Well, again, just to be clear, each and every one of those positions has an impact on the college. There's no doubt about that. It's clear to everyone that there is no position at the college that does not impact our ability to provide services to students. Having said that, we had to continue to ensure that it met the criteria that was developed by the College Planning Committee. Particularly the instructional positions, many of those reductions were in response to our reduction in intersessions that we provide. We are offering a very limited summer session, and at this given time, I would project that we would not be able to offer either a summer or winter intersession next year and perhaps the year beyond, given the current state of the fiscal situation in California. So that criteria informed this process, as well as the reduction in the number of full-time equivalent students that we are expected to serve going forward. And that number, again, has been reduced significantly. And so we have to adjust the staffing to reflect that new reality of us being funded to serve less students.
It's my understanding that in hard economic times, generally, our enrollments go up. Is that right?
Well, certainly in hard economic times, you have unemployment, which drives demand in community colleges, as it should. That's why we're here. Another effect recently has been, we've had the largest graduating classes in our high school population in California in our history. That has certainly impacted us. And then on top of that, you've had the cuts to CSU and UC enrollments, which have driven students who are fully prepared to transfer back to community colleges.
Yeah. And my recollection is that about 3 years ago, maybe it was 4 years ago, we had FTEs, or FTESs, of about, that's full-time equivalent students. That's the basis on which the state pays us money, of somewhere around 21,000, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and where are we now?
Let's see, the latest numbers were about 19,400, Anne Marie?
Yes, our funding level is about 19,348. We just submitted our P2 report, and it was 19,650 thereabouts. So we are still serving more students than what we're being funded for in the current year.
And that's because faculty members are letting them in their classes because they need the classes and all that, but we're just not getting reimbursed.
Well,
for
and
some of
also, we are very loath to cut courses once the semester begins. I mean, we establish this class schedule and we try to keep to it. In the meantime, the state of California continues to cut our funding. So we've made a commitment, and through the use of revenues in the general fund through our reserve, we've decided to fund those courses.
Yeah. Now, and we project the full-time equivalent students that we will be funded for is going to continue to go down, is that right?
For the next fiscal year, 12-13, the best case scenario, we're projecting that the funding level will remain at 19,348 FTES. Worst case scenario, if the tax measure fails, then that's about 1,000 FTES reduction.
Okay. And so we find ourselves in this somewhat ironic position of having more students coming to our doors for all the reasons that you've outlined, and less money to offer them classes, and on top of that, we have to find these cuts that we're talking about in order to maintain these sort of state-mandated policies. Now, I want to go back to one last question in this area, and that is, with regard to these educational technologists, learning center, people employed at learning centers, computer specialists, things like this, you're satisfied that the decisions that you've made about how to fund these things offers the best chance to keep these programs going, is that right?
That is correct. We're certainly, it'd be fair to say that I'm saddened by the fact that we are reducing these services, but confident that we can continue to provide the service even though it will be at a reduced level.
Yeah. I suppose one of the alternatives would have been to eliminate entire programs and just say we're going to cut it, and did you take that into consideration?
Yes, and we have been in discussions about program-specific reductions, but it's very difficult to just eliminate a program without fully understanding all the impacts of eliminating a program, and obviously trying to understand what that means to the faculty in that program and the students that are being served currently and what would happen to them. But those are ongoing discussions, and those are certainly discussions that we have to have given the possibility of another $4.8 million in cuts.
We had several international students come and talk about the American Language Cultural Institute. Is that program being eliminated?
There are no programs being eliminated in the international student program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the honors program, that's not being eliminated either?
No, it's certainly not being eliminated, although I certainly understand the concern of students. It is a valued program here at Long Beach City College, and we expect to continue to provide those opportunities.
Okay. And this is the only question I'll ask about international students again. How's that covered now if they're going to eliminate the position of the manager of that program?
I will turn that specific question over to our Vice President of Student Services, Dr. Peterson.
So we'll be looking at consolidating and leveraging other resources and student services to provide those services.
Okay, so the services will remain but come from a different place?
Correct.
Okay, good. Yeah, and just so people in the audience know, if you don't already, we would not, as a board, engage in any micromanagement of how these decisions are made, because we don't have the picture that the administrators do who are making these decisions individually. This is a policy board. We set general policy, and boards get into a lot of trouble when they start to micromanage discrete individual decisions. Finally, back to this budget projections for 2012 and 2013. We lost $1.3 million after the mid-year performance report. What happened?
Certainly, Vice President Gable can answer specifically, but basically, we've had additional reductions based on the lack of fee revenue that the state collected. The state budget's based on the amount of student fees that it plans to collect. A budget is created. That revenue came in well below what was projected for many, many reasons. And also the property taxes that were anticipated in the budget have not materialized.
Yeah, and in contrast to K through 12s, the property tax shortfalls are not backfilled, which they are under Proposition 98, aren't they?
Correct. Yes, and specifically what happened after the mid-year report, and the mid-year report was the report that was filed as of December 31st, 2011, was let's back up a little bit. Community college funding, we get paid based upon the FTES, and there's three components of the funding that we receive. We receive a piece from the state, we receive property taxes, and we receive enrollment fees from the students. What the state pays us is the difference between what we collect in both property taxes and enrollment fees from how much the total computational revenue is based upon the FTES. So let's, just as an example, let's say that that's $100 million of how much revenue we should earn based upon the FTES that we generate. If we receive $2 million in enrollment fees and $8 million in property taxes, then theoretically the state is supposed to pay us $90 million. Now at the statewide level, if the property taxes and the enrollment fees don't come in at the level that they have put into the statewide budget, then they don't make up the difference. So say we only collected, instead of $10 million in property taxes and enrollment fees, we only collected $8 million. The state isn't then going to give us $92 million to backfill that $2 million loss. What they do is they apply what they call a deficit factor, and in this case it would be about a 2% deficit factor, and they say we're still only going to give you $90 million even though we owe you $92 million, and so we lost $2 million because of that. As Trustee Otto mentioned, the K-12, they have what they call a required backfill when property taxes come in lower for the K-12 system. Community colleges do not have that. So in February, when the state, what they call P1 or period 1, when all the property taxes and enrollment fee revenues came in through December, they were short, and they applied a 3.3% deficit factor to community colleges. We had planned on a 1% deficit factor because it's been common the last few years where we have had a deficit. So the difference, the largest difference of what happened after mid-year was that that deficit factor was increased 2.3% from what we had in our budget, which was a loss in revenue of about $2.2 million. The reason that we're showing $1.3 million up here is because we're estimating that we're going to have expenditure savings of over $1 million that individual departments throughout the entire college aren't going to spend. So that's the difference there.
And that's different from the cuts that we're talking about tonight?
Yes, the cuts that we're talking about tonight affect the next fiscal year, the 12-13 fiscal year. That line item there is related to the current fiscal year, 11-12.
Now, how could we have less revenue in this first quarter when tuition went from $26 a unit to $36 a unit?
Because the state didn't budget, or in order for the state to balance their budget, they budgeted enrollment fee revenues and property taxes on a statewide level higher than what they should have been. You know, I think when the governor prepared the budget and when the budget was being prepared for the current 11-12 fiscal year, the Chancellor's office notified the Department of Finance and said, we think that your projections for enrollment fees and property taxes are too high for community colleges, but they didn't make any adjustments, and I think it was part of the state trying to balance their own budget and knowing that if they don't come in at the level that they budget, that they'll just deficit us.
Okay. And Was some of that based on the fact that despite the fact that fees went up by,
Fees went up $10 per unit for the
Right.
current fiscal year, and they're going to go up again effective summer of 12, another $10.
right, but they went up, and I understand that they undervalued the amount of fees that would come in because many students then qualified for what's called Board of Governor fee waivers that hadn't before, and the truth of the matter is that at Long Beach City College, is it about 80% of our students don't pay fees anyway?
We're under 80, but close.
Between 75 and 80.
Okay. So I think that was known as the February surprise, is that right?
Correct.
This 3.2 million instead of a 1%, 3.2% instead of 1% that we were then going to be reduced. And wasn't there then talk of a second cut called the redevelopment sweep?
Yes, and that is still looming, actually. In the proposed budget that the governor put forward in January, they reduced the community college apportionment, when that's the apportionment is the amount of money that the states give community colleges. They reduced that by $149 million for the current fiscal year. That means for the 11-12 fiscal year. Because the governor believes that with the dissolution of the redevelopment agencies that there's going to be more property taxes coming to community colleges. Now there's great concern that the amount of money, that $149 million, is not going to come in as redevelopment property taxes. And if it does not come in, then we could be facing an additional deficit factor, so basically an additional 3.3% deficit factor, and we won't know until June. In order for that not to occur, there's two things. One, either the property taxes need to come in, which no one that I speak with believes that they're going to come in, and two, the budget bill as it exists right now would need to be amended to remove that line item from the budget trailer bill that is currently going through the legislative process.
Okay, thank you. And that would be in addition to both the cuts that we are trying to deal with now, and if the tax measure doesn't pass in November, those additional cuts, is that right?
Correct, and that is not even reflected in our worst case scenario because clarity just came through on what that actually meant about a month ago at the state level, and this projection here was done before that.
And what's the impact on Long Beach Community College District if that were to come to pass?
It would be over $3 million.
The redevelopment sweep?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's all my questions, and there is a motion on the floor to adopt resolution number 042412B, which concerns a reduction of classified services. Are there any other comments or questions by anyone?
If I could just make one more comment. Every time that we are challenged with this resolution, it pains me to no end because it affects people's lives. It affects their livelihood. It affects their ability to keep our economic power structure strong, Long Beach economy strong. We're facing challenges not only in education but in private industry with businesses closing and manufacturing going away, and having especially a skills gap that we have many jobs that we can't fill because the skills are just not there. And I'm saying that for the purpose of this. There was a lot of referencing to the effect this has on students. And I want to say that in regards to that, we are continuing to support students. The programs will continue. ESL programs will remain there. Honors programs will remain there. How we provide and how we strengthen those programs is what's changing. And it's unfortunate that we have to restructure everything that we have to do. We've talked about reorganization. We've talked about collapsing programs because the budget is simply not there. And it's going on everywhere. It's not only here. It's all community colleges are facing that. All city governments are facing that, and our state government is facing that. But it's still the human capital that it hurts here. So whatever vote we take tonight, I just want to let you know that for those students who are here, and thank you, by the way, for your comments. Thank you for being here. You stayed here. You've listened to the discussion. I know that it's been long, and a lot of it might not be as clear as it possibly might be, but we've tried to provide you with as much background as to what we try to look at when we make our decisions and what the effects those decisions are going to have on you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The resolution is passed unanimously. Agenda item number 9, Academic Senate. I understand at this point you have no.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
can we take a 5-minute break? Not just for us, for these people that probably don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting can exit
sure.
cordially.
Sure.
Just a quick 5-minute break.
Okay, we will reconvene at 20 minutes after 8.